to it.
Hey, Mary, what's up?
You know,
Oh,
so sick of this. Hold on.
the pearl made you go
It's
live.
it's okay. Oh wow.
Okay, there's no Mary. Thank you, Sean, for that confirmation.
All
Chappelle
right.
didn't know.
Okay, no worries. But just
Hi.
here on out, I want to go
I
live
don't
at
think we're going to
6.
have equilibrium until
Not before.
Alrighty.
Okay, but we're going to talk about. There's an interesting article I came across.
Megan
Megan reveals the
What's that?
perils
That was
facing
split the
Black women in
Democratic
white
Party.
spaces.
Just like the Green
I
Party
think
did.
women of color in
on
particular
Friday.
feel it.
People's Party
But,
in the
you know,
19th
Maria, when you're
century
black, that's
merged
like the
in with
dividing line. The
Democratic
only
Party in
people
the
who
19th
cannot
century to give us William
marry or
Jennings
have
Bryan,
children out of blackness are
and
black people.
eventually led to FDR.
You know,
Right.
because you have white Hispanics, right? White Latinx community,
Yes.
and you are a generation away from being that. Or you can declare yourself that and keep on going. And I see a lot of people who do a lot of floating. Everybody floats but black people. So it's a different kind of thing, right? But she has shown
Right.
you that. And it's very interesting. She's been socialized in a way. She, you know, has not been someone who's had a. She's not been socialized as a black person. So that's interesting too.
Right.
But even with that, you know, I think that's. You think that's an interesting conversation to have?
I think so,
Yeah.
and I think it's pertinent for all ladies of colors too.
I think so.
Yeah, for some reason, you come to this country if you're from somewhere else and you want to blend, assimilate, and the whiteness is what is a way of assimilating, which to me is ridiculous. It's like we're denying who we are.
I hope
know.
you will call in because we're going to be talking about
Mhm.
that.
Right.
But then I'm going to do an update on the George Floyd trial because they're now impaneling the jury. And
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
yeah. They're doing that now. So and then they just passed a really repressive voter suppression law in Georgia. While all of these things are going on, 2022 is in full effect, and these Republicans are organizing. You saw that with CPAC. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, and I don't see
Cheating,
I don't.
but
Well,
organizing.
no, it's not just cheating. You know, these people understand the rules, Marty. Democrats are not running like they're in the majority. They're not. They run like
No, they're
losers.
complacent.
No, they run like
Yeah.
losers. They run like losers.
Mhm.
The only time they really, in recent history, that they didn't run like losers was when Reverend was on the shtick.
50-50 split with the tiebreaker being Kamala Harris.
And that's what you
Yeah.
have to do. That's not, you know, they don't go, they don't run like they should. A talking point for all Democrats should be: we have a 50-50 split in the Senate, but do you know that we represent 41 million more Americans? That's a game changer.
The Santita Jackson
I
Show.
agree. I agree.
Right.
And it's sad because they don't use that
It's not
on
sad.
their
I am
platform and
disgusted.
they don't push.
Because they
Yeah,
could
they
they
don't
could do
push.
something else. No, because they're playing a game. Because they play a game with the Republicans to maintain corporatism.
Yeah.
$15 an hour when people need $24, $25 an hour. And
Mhm.
I have friends who have small businesses or who have businesses who are like, wow, that would really imperil me. I said, then the rest of the society needs to be scaled up. But you can't continue to
Exactly.
scale the society up and keep people scaled down. That's just that's not right. It's crazy. So anyway, let me say hello to Linda. How you doing? And Carol, boy, you get up early, Carol. Adrian, and I love it. Francis, and I'm so grateful.
You may see more
Raphael
COVID relief
Suleiman,
money
how
from
you
the
doing,
government within
Raphael?
days.
Shirley
the
from
House is expected to give
Philadelphia.
final
I love
congressional
it.
approval to
So
President
everybody,
Biden's COVID
please
relief
like and
bill
share. Like and
today.
share.
So,
Please like
what
and
does
share no
that
matter where
mean
you
for
are. If you
you?
have one person following you, if you're only following yourself, I need you to like and share, like and share, like and share. Let's continue to grow our numbers. Hey, Daryl, how you doing? And everybody, we're going to be talking about an interesting article that I came across that Megan reveals the perils facing Black women in white spaces. I think it'll be an interesting discussion for all of us to have.
Prosecutors are still
What-
trying to file another
white,
charge
black,
against former
yellow,
Minneapolis
red,
police
brown,
officer Derek
whatever
Chauvin
your
in the death
background.
of George Floyd.
I think we
The
need to
jury
have that
selection is
discussion
proceeding
today.
for now in his murder and
Because, you know,
manslaughter
quite
trial.
frankly, we're all having
AP
the discussion
correspondent Ed
anyway.
Donahue says they
So why
seated
not have
3
it?
jurors yesterday.
Everybody's still
Mhm.
talking about this interview. And
We have
everybody's got
Reverend
a take on it.
Johnson.
So I'm going to let you, Marnie, and you, Medi, go. Maria, I do hope that you will call in.
And you wrote, because I would like to give my
No, I'm very
have a great
serious.
show.
unjust.
I'm
death of
very
George
serious. You
Floyd.
should call in.
Judge Peter Cahill says just about everyone has seen
Yeah,
or heard
okay,
something
I'll
about George
try
Floyd's
because I'm going to be
death.
driving into work
Oh,
too. So,
no, we
but
don't want you to do
put
that
all that
then.
aside.
How about that?
Because as a jury, you have
No,
to decide
okay.
just on the evidence you heard
No.
in the court.
All
I'm
right,
Ed Donahue.
sweetie. No,
Yeah.
Residents of the town of
don't do that,
Honolulu,
Okay.
north
Maria.
of
No,
Honolulu, have been
Hey,
ordered to
Nicole.
evacuate because of massive
You are so
flooding after a
sweet.
heavy rainstorm.
Said I'm on
Torrential
point.
rains have inundated parts
You're
of
so
Hawaii
sweet.
for several days.
Um,
Arkansas's new abortion law takes
Brian,
effect later this
Wesley,
year. It
Bab,
bans
hey,
nearly all
sweetie.
abortions in the
Everybody,
state.
please like
The
and
new
share,
law
like
will
and
only
share,
allow
like and
abortions to
share,
save
like
the
and
life
share,
of the
and
mother.
like,
There are no
please.
exceptions
I
for
need
rape
all of
or
you to go over
incest.
to the
Opponents
Santita
plan to
Jackson
challenge
Show
it. This is AP News.
YouTube channel. I need you to like and subscribe there and
More
get your
fallout
friends to
from
do it.
Oprah's
Please, we want to
interview
grow
with
the
Britain's
numbers.
Prince Harry and Meghan
I'm going
Markle.
to have an
The AP's
announcement
Charles
to
de
make
Ledesma has
in a
this
few
from overseas.
In
weeks.
countries with historic
That I
ties
think
to
will be
Britain,
very pleasing to you, but I
allegations
need
by
you to
the
help us
couple
to grow
that an
these numbers.
unnamed member of the
So,
royal family had concerns
so
over
we're going to
the
be
colour of
talking
their
about,
unborn
we're
baby's
going to get an
skin.
update on
Raise
the
a
George
thorny
Floyd
question. Do these nations really
trial.
want to be so
The trial
closely connected
is,
to Britain
they're in
and its royal
process.
family
They're now
in the UK?
impaneling the jury, and they're
It was
having a tough
expected the
time.
interview would expose
Because, of
some
course,
rifts in the royal
everybody's
family.
heard about the
Now it
George
seems to
Floyd
be risking
case,
divisions
and
within
doubtless
the
people have their
fabric of the
opinions.
Commonwealth, an
Can they
association
pull together
of
an
54
impartial
countries
jury?
held
I'm
together
going to talk
by
with
historic
attorney
ties. For
C.K.
decades,
Hoffler about
we've
that because
been
she
the
has
driving
lawyers who are
force
working
behind the
on
organisation.
the
I'm
criminal
Charles
case,
Stewart.
the civil
An
case. We need
Amtrak
to know the
employee
difference
in New
between the
Jersey
two,
is
the
accused of
differences and the
stealing
distinctions
hundreds of
between the
parts from
two.
the railroad
And
and
then
selling them
we need to look at
online
this
for more
repressive
than
voting
$50,000.
rights,
He will be in
voter
court this
suppression law
afternoon.
that was just
I'm Rita Foley,
passed
AP
yesterday in
News.
Georgia. Everybody, while we are looking at all of these
This
other
is 8:20
topics,
a.m.
you know what's
WCPT
happening?
Willow Springs.
People,
And
they have voter
streaming
suppression
worldwide
laws
at
in more than 40
WCPT.com.
states,
We are Chicago's
and they are being
progressive
passed
talk,
because most of
where
these
facts
states
matter.
are Republican controlled. We lost control
Now,
of the states
WCPT 820
really
Chicago
starting in
traffic
2009. In the Obama era, we lost like more than 1,000 seats, and we have not regained that ground. Reverend Dr. Vicki Johnson, Diva, how are you?
Wonderful, Sandy. How are you?
It's wonderful hearing your voice.
Good. Always good to hear yours.
Oh, thank you so much. And so there's, we're going to be talking about Meghan Markle today. A lot of people have been very, very interested in that. Reverend, why are people so interested? Why is this, why has this been so, like, riveting?
Alexa, play WCPT.
It disturbs our picture of what a fantasy life is like. The prince and the princess, all of the things that we read about as children that make you feel happy and good.
Yeah,
This
but
is
a
not
fantasy,
doing it.
I'm like, well, why do you need to believe in a fantasy? You know fantasy's not real.
The Tom
Ain't no such thing.
It's very true, but that's how people live. So
Okay. Okay. I just said,
stomach issues.
One minute.
I couldn't, I just couldn't. I just couldn't. I said,
but
wait.
at this day and age, systemic racism should not be a surprise anywhere you find it.
Anyway, I mean, it's and from the British royal family. What?
And EPI symptoms
Come on,
can be
you
confused with
guys.
those of other
But
common
I
digestive
think
conditions.
the great thing is
30.
it gives us the opportunity to have these conversations. So we're going to come right up. And please bring her up just a bit, Paul. She's a little bit too low. She's too far back in the mix.
EPI
Thank
is
you so
manageable,
much.
so don't wait any longer.
15.
Use the symptom checker at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, could I have EPI?
Sponsored by AbbVie.
5 seconds.
Listening to WC. This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. Can you believe it's almost April? Wow. We're going to have a high of 65 degrees in Chicago today. It's going to be cloudy in Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 48 degrees, and it will be raining. But it is above zero, everybody, and it's a great, great day. It's a great day as we're beginning to move into the spring season. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT 820 and AM 950 radio up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Of course, up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, we're watching what's happening with the George Floyd trial, specifically with the impaneling of the jury. We're going to be talking with the president of the National Bar Association about that and what is the difference between the civil case and the criminal case. And will they be able to pull together a jury? Everybody in the world has heard about this case. Can he pull together an impartial jury? I want all of my morning stars on Facebook, on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, to please like and share, and please just hop on over to YouTube, to the Santita Jackson Show channel. I need you to like and subscribe. I need you to go on and do that. And so let's get together, and I want you to call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. You can text me at that number because of the generosity of GWC Injury Lawyers. But we're going to be talking about Meghan Markle again today, because I think she's pulled this interview has pulled out a lot of issues for us. I came across a very interesting article that talks about the perils of Black women who have to function in white spaces. That's going to be at 7 o'clock. Of course, we're going to do the update on the George Floyd case and this really repressive law that was passed yesterday in Georgia that is going to heavily restrict voting. Oh yeah, we are in the voting season, and there are more than 40 states that have voter suppression laws that are being passed in these Republican-controlled legislatures. How will that impact 2022? It could be devastating if we're not prepared and if we're not looking out for it. So everybody on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, like and share. Please get everybody to go over to YouTube, please, and join Brian Martin and Deborah Thomas and Linda, who are over there. So please, everybody, I will need you to let's get those numbers up. All right, everybody. So let's get to some of these headlines. They're calling it Jim Crow in a suit and tie. That's right. The Republican Party of Georgia advanced its sweeping assault on voting rights yesterday by pushing through the state Senate legislation that would roll back no excuse absentee voting and ramp up voter ID requirements, a move that drew outrage from activists who dubbed the measure one of the worst voter suppression bills in history. Indeed, President Jimmy Carter responded, "I am disheartened, saddened, and angry. We must not lose the progress we have made. We must not promote confidence among one segment of the electorate by restricting the participation of others. Our goal always should be to increase, not decrease, voter participation." I'm going to be talking about that in just a few minutes. Of course, we've got a COVID-19 update with Dr. Deborah Holden. This jury selection is moving forward. There are 3 jurors who have been impaneled on in the murder trial of George Floyd. Will there be more? Can they pull together an impartial jury? That is the question. We're going to be talking about that today. We're finding that more and more people are supportive of minimum wage. It's a no-brainer, they're saying. It's long overdue. This is according to a report that says from the Economic Policy Institute, they find that raising the minimum wage to $15 would boost the pay of, guess what, 32 million Americans, fully 10% of Americans. Wow, abolish the monarchy is trending after Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's tell-all with Oprah. But guess what? The royal family, well, they have responded in a very, very precise one-paragraph statement. They issued a statement yesterday saying that the whole family is saddened, quote, to learn the full extent of how challenging the last few years have been for Harry and Meghan. While some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. Harry, Meghan, and Archie will always be much loved members. Wow. Said a lot, even though the words were few. So let's get to some good news from Reverend Vicki Johnson. So glad that she's part of the family here, and she's part of my family. I just love her to pieces. One of the great ministers. Seen her evolve from this really brilliant psalmist, one of the greatest singers you have ever heard. But now she's the pastor of the St. Thomas Lutheran Church in Chicago, and she's here to give us our good news today. Reverend Johnson.
Good morning, and God bless you. I have some good news. Those of you who go back a little bit can remember when we were in elementary school, we had morning and afternoon recess. It lasted for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. 15 minutes to free your mind from reading, writing, and arithmetic. 15 minutes to let go of the 50 states and their capitals. 15 minutes to put the periodic chart to rest and presidents and vice presidents on the back burner. We had 15 minutes. 15 minutes to play tag, to play 1, 2, 3, red light, to jump hopscotch and jump rope, double dutch, 2, 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah, we played jacks and catch. We just ran around in circles. 15 minutes. 15 minutes to huddle up in a corner on cold days to keep each other warm. And teachers had 15 minutes too. I imagine that during their 15 minutes, they smoked cigarettes and drank coffee and chatted among themselves. 15 minutes. I don't believe our children today have recess, and they don't get those 15 minutes of mindless activities to unwind so that when they go back into the classroom, they can focus and get down to business. We are adults now, but we still deserve that 15 minutes. 15 minutes to break away from the troubles of this world. 15 minutes to just breathe and de-stress. 15 minutes away from solving the world's problems. 15 minutes to invest in yourself. 15 minutes to pray and meditate on Psalm 46 and 10. Be still and know that I am God. 15 minutes. When you take recess, when you take that 15 minutes, it might be all that you need to make it successfully through the day. And if you can do that, then to me, that's good news.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. I need to take 15 minutes. I need to. Oh my gosh. Seriously, I mean, really, I'm not kidding because we're not doing that. I know, I mean, I'm guilty of that. I
Right.
go and I know when I sit, Pastor Johnson, I fall asleep, which lets me know that I am on the edge, which is not where I need to be. And so I want to thank you for that because everybody needs a break. Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a break. Pastor Vicki
Get your
Johnson,
15 minutes.
oh look, take those 15 minutes. Think about it. My hours was from 10:15 to 10:30. You took me back to the John J. Pershing School. You got you got the lunch break at school. You got the break. Everybody needs a break where you kind of go back into who you really are. Pastor Vicki Johnson, St. Thomas Lutheran Church. See you next week.
All right. God bless you.
I love you. God bless you. God bless you.
Love you.
Dr. Deborah Fur Holden, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University. How are you today?
I'm good. Good morning, Santita. Good morning. I love that. And I'm looking at my calendar like, when am I get these 15 minutes in today? Because, Lord, I need them too.
Yeah. I mean, but
too.
seriously, before we get into COVID-19, that is part of health, isn't it? I mean, that helps you to de-stress. I mean, we need breaks, right?
Well, I did a panel yesterday. It was a recorded panel. It was very cool. It was a doctor named Hal Paz, who is the chancellor and head of the medical system at Ohio State University. I'm sorry, the Ohio State University. And then I was also on with Dr. Wayne Frederick, who's the president of Howard University.
Thank you.
Yes. And so So we did this panel for South by Southwest yesterday, and one of the questions that came to me specifically was, because I've got some background in psychiatric epidemiology, so that's really like dealing with mental health at the population level. And one of the questions that they asked was, what should, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color be doing during COVID to manage mental health? And this was sort of the rapid fire portion of it. And the first thing I said was self-care, because it's so important. And it's the kind of thing where if you're not intentionally, mindfully practicing self-care and purposely, mindfully stopping to take some of that time to slow down, to regroup, to get both feet on the ground, to breathe, to all of that, you might actually miss things. You could miss things for yourself. There's nothing worse than missing the signs your own body is giving you. And then by the time you get them, some damage has been done. And I think people really need to think about their mental health that same way. Having a major depressive episode or having an anxiety attack, and I know so many people who've dealt with these things, people who've no history of mental illness or anything, but they let it build up, and then it's like it almost like it just has to get out, and so one day they have a panic attack, and it's like, no, this is good stuff. Like, be mindful. I always tell people your well-being is the most important thing on the planet, because if you're not well, you can't be anything for anybody else. It's like the flight attendants say, put your mask on first. The first time I heard that, I'm literally sitting on a plane in the 3 seats in a row. I'm in the middle. I've got my son, who's about 1.5, on one side, and then I've got my daughter, Jordan, who's about 3 on the other side, and I'm in the middle. And the flight attendant, does the spiel. If we lose oxygen or lose cabin pressure or whatever, and the mask drop, if you're flying with someone who's disabled or, unable to help themselves, put your mask on first before you help anybody else. And I must have rolled my eyes from the front to the back of the plane, right? And she comes over. She says, "Is everything okay, ma'am? Do you need anything?" I said, "No, I'm fine." She said, "I noticed you kind of seemed to have a little reaction when I was saying what I was saying." I said, "Well, you don't have kids, right?" She says, "No, I don't have kids." I said, "Well, because why would I not help them first?" And she just know nothing about it. She said, "Well, ma'am, if you can't breathe, you can't help them."
How about that?
My eyes, I was like, "Wait, what?" She said, "Oh yeah, we just tell you to put your mask on first, because if you can't breathe and you pass out, they're goners. You can't help them at all. So you have to put your mask on, and you have to be able to breathe in order to be able to help them." And Santita, I looked to one kid to the right, and my son is, putzing around with something on the door. And my daughter, who was always pretty easy, self-managed, she's in her chair strapped in, I don't know, playing with a coloring book or something. And I'm looking, and I look down, and I can see my belly is rolled over the seatbelt. I'm the heaviest I had ever been in my life at this point. My nails are kind of chewed up, and I normally always, kept my nails nice. My hair is pulled back in a ponytail because I don't bother really doing my hair anymore. It was like in that moment, I just did a quick self-inventory. And I was actually on my way to visit my mom. And I was like, "Girl, you're not doing good." And in that moment, I lost my breath. And it literally felt like for a second, like I couldn't breathe. And really what it was is I had just gotten present to, in that moment, how little I had been taking care of myself and how much I had been taking care of everybody else. It literally took my breath away. So when I got to Michigan, thank God for mamas, right? Because when I got to Michigan, of course, I was going to be with the perfect person to help me take care of myself, because she's my mama and always loved taking care of me and was an awesome, awesome grandma. And so I shared with her the experience that I had on the plane. And she said, look, if this is what matters to you, first of all, let's get you all straightened up while you're here. You know, I don't know if you want to go to the gym. I don't know if you want to go on a run. I used to run all the time. She said, but let's get you your physical routine back in order. Let's go get your nails done. Let's go get your hair done. Like, you take care of yourself. And then let's figure out what your self-care routine, no kidding, for your life will look like. Like, you don't ever want to let being a mom or being a wife or being anything take you away from tending to yourself. Because these kids will grow up and they'll run off and have their own lives and spouses and kids, or, you know, chasing their dreams or whatever, and you'll still have you. Your husband, I was married at the time, you know, God willing, that lasts forever. But if it don't, guess what? He'll be gone on to the next wife or girlfriend or whatever, and you'll still have you. So I really did, and I was at this point maybe about 25, 26. It was just like one of those eye-opening moments. And when I think about how we talk about mental health, and as somebody who's been trained in public mental health, I'm like, we never talk about it that way.
Well, hold
We
on.
never give it to people in ways that are simple.
Because I think we need that now. Because we have been living in an unnatural way. We've been locked away from each other for a year. And we've seen suicides go up, even with our youth. And we've seen the degrading of our mental health. And we need to have that discussion because there's a lot of anxiety. Every time you take the COVID-19 test, your anxiety level goes up, Dr. Deb. You know, am I going to be positive or am I going to be negative? I mean, and we're doing this all the time. And so I'm glad that we had that good news from Dr. Deb, and I'm so glad that you are open enough to sharing uh, what you have experienced, because this is part of healthcare too, you know, and even many people who might not want to get tested because you're scared. This is our mental health, our mental health. I mean, as we're now reopening, but some places are reopening, Dr. Deb, and others are not. And some places are having parties, others are not. Now Florida is open and the kids are going down there for spring break. As people are getting vaccinated, as some of the numbers are falling at this time, what would you say to these college kids who and high school kids who, you know, might be seniors who are coming into the spring and who want to have parties or virtual proms or whatever it is, well, and get together? What would you say to them now?
Well, we saw what happened with spring break last year, and I literally remember seeing a post on Facebook from somebody who lived in Flint who basically was saying, I'm tired of all this stuff. Mind you, this was last April. Okay, we had really only been in COVID for a month, right? A month, and she was already over it. I can only imagine where she is with it right now. And she said, I'm over it. I had plans to take my kids to Florida for spring break, and we're going. I don't care what anybody says. This is not, you know, a way to live. It's all this stuff. And I could get the frustration, but literally we were a month in at that point. And she went to Florida, and then she had this whole thread, and people were chiming in, like, let me know if you know, what your spring break plans are. We've got to still live our lives. And the week following spring break for our kids in Flint, because spring break is, you know, happens really over a couple weeks, and different people do it at different times. But the week following the spring break for kids in Flint is when our rate started to skyrocket. It was a week later. All these people went on spring break, and a bunch of them brought this virus back to our community. And I thought how unfair that is. You know, you wanted to live your best life, and you were tired, and you were over COVID, and you were that. And so you went and did whatever you did, but then they became the vectors who brought it back to our community. So here's the reality. Anytime we increase people coming into contact with other people, we're going to see increases in spread. And that's going to be the case until we can get the community case rate down to something very, very low, like a very, very small single digit number, 1, 2, 3%. Until we get to that point, or herd immunity, right, where we've got enough people in the population who are protected, that the likelihood of it continuing to spread gets really, really low, then all of these activities are going to increase spread. There's no way around that. That's not a doomsday scenario. That's just how the world works, right? And so, for the people that are going to Florida for spring break, I personally don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to get, because we're talking about not just people who are taking a trip. We're not talking about a family who's taking a trip in a non-special time. We're talking about a whole lot of people hovering in a couple of select cities all at the same time with the goal to party and turn up. That is just a recipe for disaster. So I would personally not, go to that kind of environment. And there are other ways. If people are in need of vacation or R&R,
1 minute.
there are other ways. Do you know that Hawaii had a program? Hawaii had a program and was paying people's round trip airfare for them to shelter in place or work remotely from Hawaii. And you had to be there, you had to do it for at least a month, but they were paying people's round trip airfare. It was a program.
But you know what?
They were paying their round trip airfare.
As we go to break, if we wanted to figure out ways to help people get through this crisis, monetarily, spiritually, psychologically, we would do that. This lets you know the amount of care that we do not give to human beings. Got to think about that. You're going to be coming back in the next hour as we talk about
15.
Black women, the perils of Black women in white spaces. That's what
10.
Meghan Markle has shown us that. And so we're going to talk about that with Dr. Deb and a wonderful panel. As we
5.
talk about that, let's talk about George Floyd, everybody. George Floyd, what is that trial going to look like? What will the jury look like? And what about this repressive bill, voter suppression bill that was just passed in Georgia? Wow. More of the Santita Jackson Show. Like and share, everybody. Back in just a minute. Dr. Deb, do you want to hold or do you want us to call you back at the top of the hour?
It's all right. I can hold. I'll just go on mute.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you need me to send you this article so you can take a look at it? I sent it to you, didn't I? I did send it to you. Yes, I did. That piece.
Oh, yeah, I looked it up. It was in yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. I just want to make sure, because I always try to send something to support what we're talking about. Always try to do that. Whoo. Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Hey, Tanya. Good morning, Robert and Blu-ray and Linda Holloway. Everyone, please, I need you to go over to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Even if you just go there for a few minutes, go there and like and subscribe. I need you to do that so we can get these numbers up. Nina, are you a member? Carol, Bab, hi, Linda, Tanya, Robert, Vicky. I need you to do that. So please help me out, okay, everybody? I'm so glad that you're with us this morning. Keith Fluid. Hey. I was talking to DeVell Crawford yesterday, had a nice talk with him. The great DeVell, the Prince of New Orleans, brilliant musician. You're going to be hearing more of him on my show. We're both godchildren of Roberta Flack, and boy, are we blessed. Are we blessed? I'm so blessed. Keith Fluid, love you. Barbara Bacon from Oak Park. Hey, hey, hey. Carmelita, how you doing? And that's right, Save Our Sacred Vote. We're going to be talking about that because they were able to pass a bill that was so onerous that President Carter came out and made a comment about it. He said, this is absolutely awful. He's saddened, sickened by it. Wow. They're going to make it much harder for you to vote, for all of us to vote. And that's happening all over the country, everybody. It's not just in Georgia. It's not just in Georgia. So while we're talking about Meghan and Harry, and that's important because they brought up a lot of issues that we're loath to discuss, but if we're going to really get on the other side of COVID socially, okay, this pandemic of racism and classism and all these isms, we have to have these discussions. So we have to do everything at the same time. That having been said, we have to continue to look at what's happening with our vote. With our vote, our vote is in peril. It's in peril. So everybody, like and share, like and share, like and share. I don't care if you're following yourself. Please like and share, everybody. Like and share. And I want to know what you think about the George Floyd trial. What are you expecting from the George Floyd trial? Call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Want to know what you think about that trial. Do you think that they're going to be able to
Back in a minute.
panel? Do we have Attorney Hoffler on?
No, I'm trying her again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me know when you do have her, but always let me know because I'm expecting her there. Are you going to get on? Are you going to let me know in my ear, or are you going to send me a text? What's the quickest way for you to let me know that she's going to be there? Okay, everybody. So call me. Let me know what you think about this trial. What do you think about the
Back in 15.
Did you get her yet?
No, I haven't. I left a voicemail.
Okay, no, honey. Don't leave a voicemail. Keep trying her until you reach her. Okay?
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. You can text me at that number. GWC Injury Lawyers gives you the opportunity to reach out to me there. Have a couple of topics I want you to weigh in on, and I want you to call me. I want you to call me about the George Floyd trial. Now, they're impaneling the jury now. They have 3 members already. But they're having a hard time pulling the panel together. Why? Because you need an impartial jury of your peers. Who are the peers? And whose peers are we looking for? Are we looking for the peers of Derek Chauvin, who is the former police officer, the then police officer who was, we saw him on video. We saw his knee on the neck of George Floyd, and we saw George Floyd then go lifeless after more than 8 minutes. So you tell me how can they find a jury? And how should the jury adjudicate? I mean, you tell me. Convict on lesser charges, is that what you're saying, Kenneth Rush? We don't know. We're still awaiting a possible third-degree murder charge. I don't know what that means. That's why we're going to get Attorney C.K. Hoffler on to talk about that, because I want to know what all of this means. Will we be able to find someone can we pull together a jury of their peers, of Derek Chauvin's peers? Or are we looking for someone who would be on the other side of Derek Chauvin, like someone who would be the peer of George Floyd? How is this going to work? Call me, text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. I want to know what you're thinking. Do you think that what do you think? Do you think that this is are you expecting a conviction? You let me know. Do you think that, given the protection that police officers receive, will he be convicted? And remember, there's several other police officers who are awaiting their own trials. The other police officers who were there, and how will they handle themselves? You tell me. I mean, will they throw him under the bus? Will they say, "Well, I tried to get him to stop"? Because there was one police officer who did say, "Do you think that you've done enough?" And he said, and Chauvin dismissively said no, and he just kept his knee on this man's neck. So I want you to call me 773-763 WCPT 773-763-9278. What do you expect? Do you expect a conviction, or do you expect an acquittal? And what about the other police officers whose knees were not on the neck of George Floyd? Will they be able to walk away? Think about that. Think about that. And as Minneapolis, St. Paul, specifically Minneapolis, as well, really the whole area, as Minneapolis, as we're going into a warm season, as they are now really on pins and needles. Our brothers and sisters at AM 950 Radio are on pins and needles. They are waiting to find out what's going to happen. They are begging for justice. They are looking for something else to happen. And I want to know what you think will happen. Let me go to you, Tanya, from Naperville. Tanya, what's on your mind? What are you expecting?
I was on the West Coast when the Rodney King thing happened, and I remember how a lot of Black people felt then. And
Tanya? Okay, well let's bring up Chaparral. Let's try and get Tanya back. Because I was on the West Coast too, in the immediate aftermath of not when Rodney King was beaten. I was there when they were having the riots. I've shared that experience with all of you. And it was really it was a stunning experience to be locked in. That was the first time I'd ever experienced being locked down, because you had a dawn to dusk, you had a, what is it, a dusk to dawn curfew. So as soon as it started getting dark all over the Los Angeles area, uh, second largest city in the United States, you had to get inside. I didn't care where you were, Watts, Beverly Hills, Encino, wherever. You had to get inside. You had to get inside. So do we have Tanya back, Paul? Or do we have Chaparral?
I'm here, Santita.
Okay. Hey, Chaparral, how you doing?
I'm great. I was just listening to your conversation, and I actually did an interview yesterday with a journalism team at Northwestern, and they asked me, since I have experienced this type of pain as a parent of losing a child, they asked me, well, are you hopeful for the outcome
losing a
of the
child
George
to
Floyd?
with because we're still trying to find out with police involvement, right? I want for people who don't
Yes.
know. Okay.
Yes. And so are you optimistic about the outcome of the George Floyd trial? And I flat out said, no, I'm not optimistic at all. Because, we have seen these type of atrocities occur to Black people since the inception of America. So we have never received justice. So when we think about what happened with Rodney King, what happened with Trayvon Martin, what happened with Mike Brown, Breonna Taylor, none of these people have ever been charged and convicted like they should have. There's always either some watered down sentence or no charges at all, not only on the state level, but also on the federal level. And so because I feel that the blue wall in society is so firm, they automatically justify these killings of unarmed Black people because of who killed them, which is the police in most instances.
So you're
and
not
because
hopeful.
of that, oh no. Even if they put the third degree murder charge on it, I'm still not hopeful. He ain't going to jail. And I hope that Minnesota actually braces for the second wave of destruction, because at some point, Black people are going to get tired. Black people are going to get tired of being killed and murdered and beaten and shot in the street and left for dead. They're going to get tired.
And it is amazing. And it's just the resilience and the brilliance of Black people that we have not had a serious revolution and all-out war against the things that has happened to us. And so I sit here but I'm hopeful that at least maybe we can get some laws changed. I'm not optimistic about if he's going to go to jail. I don't think he's going to go to jail. They're going to give him a slap on the wrist like they did the guy from Laquan McDonald. You know, it's a slap on the wrist. When they are killing us and murdering us in such brutal ways. Everybody saw how he stood on his neck for 9 minutes. You heard him crying for his mama. People were standing there outraged, trying to help George Floyd, and then the cops pointed their gun at them. So it's so much to unpack about this case, but it's just like for me, when I see the other officers there, it was just like when you see the pictures of the old days where they were lynching Black people and there was a whole crowd in their Sunday best. Mm-hmm. This is what we have to deal with in America. And this is what we have been dealing with in America for 400 plus years. And it's not going to change. It is not going to change because they don't view us as human. They don't view us as whole people who have families, who have people who love us. You know, what happened with my son, like I said, you know, if they valued his life, they would have saved his life. But because they didn't, they allowed him to bleed to death right in front of them. What kind of person has that mentality to see someone in need, to see someone bleeding to death, and you do nothing? That's the coldness of the blue society, the blue wall. And that's why people don't trust the police. People don't have that good relationship. I remember I never had that. And I remember, Santita, when OJ got off. And white people were upset because Black people were kind of elated that he had gotten off. And I was like talking to my grandmother at the kitchen table, and she told me, she said, I understand white people are mad. She said, but I understand. It's not whether he's guilty or innocent, but I understand why Black people are happy because of the fact we never got the justice either. So now white people know how we felt all of these years. And that took me aback because I wasn't prepared for her to say that. But we suffer as Black people in silence a lot of times. And we don't even express the sheer grief of not getting justice. When we think about all these people from Emmett Till, I mean, we can go on and just bring up these numerous cases, case after case, case after case, where it was clear evidence that our people were murdered and killed at the hands of police, and everybody got off. How do we live in a society like that? And that's what I was telling the class yesterday. I said, it's going to take y'all, meaning non-people, you know, white people, to actually help and push to change these laws in their opinion. Because when y'all view us as human, 100% human, then, you know, even, I don't care how much value Black people have in themselves, but until they see us, because they're the majority right now, and they have the most power, until they see us as 100% human, it's not going to change as far as the dynamics for cops and people of color. This cycle will continue. And they asked me that as well. Do I think that, you know, since this summer with all the uproar, is it going to change? I'm like, no. We still have cases right now of Black people getting killed by police. Unarmed Black people. So it continues. It's just a different day. Same stuff, different day. And that's what's happening. So, Minnesota better brace, because we were displeased in the sentencing in the Laquan McDonald case. So I don't even know if they're going to get a full jury. He might get a mistrial. Because they will protect the blue wall.
Well, they are
They will
having a
protect
hard
that blue
time.
wall.
They're having a hard time impaneling this jury because they're saying the authorities are saying that finding an impartial jury, finding people who have not heard about the case or who have not formulated their opinions about the case, they're having a very, very, very hard time doing that. So let me stay right there, Chapearl. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Just briefly, what happened with your son? Can you just give us a brief overview of what happened? Why it is that you feel so passionately for people who have not heard your story before, Chapearl?
Thank you, Santita. My son, Courtney Copeland, was murdered March 4th, 2016. And what we know so far is that he pulled up to a police officer for help in front of the 25th District in Chicago. And he told them that he had been shot. They immediately told me that my son said nothing. He collapsed, and they rushed him to help. After discovering the video, we see my son laying on the ground for over 13 minutes, bleeding to death. My son literally begged the police for help, and they did nothing to help him. They then took him to the furthest hospital away from the scene where he was with the police. And he died 4 minutes before arriving to the hospital. My son was handcuffed by the police as he was dying and bleeding to death. When he got to the hospital, Santita, they couldn't put him in the trauma bed because he was still handcuffed. So they had to wait for the police officers to come and unhandcuff him. To this day, Chicago police still denies the handcuffing. They still deny that they have rushed him to the hospital. And we know that based on the autopsy report, that had he been given adequate care, the likelihood of him surviving would be greater. They allowed my son to die. And so I tell people I can't prove whether or not they shot him, but I can prove that they allowed him to die. And these are the types of police brutality that go unchecked and unnoticed all the time. We see it here live on Facebook when we are looking at the ambulance just sitting around doing nothing after somebody has been shot. And you hear hours later that the person expired. This is why, because there is no sense of urgency. And I was sitting here watching the video and I talk, everybody was always asking me, well, they seemed like they were rushing. I said, they didn't have a sense of urgency as if it was their own child. If they knew my son was critically injured with a gunshot wound to his lung, it was imperative that they take every measure to save his life. Police are trained in life-saving techniques, and they did nothing but watch him bleed to death on the ground. So these are the things that, we as Black people have to uncover for ourselves, because I know Courtney is not the only one that this has happened to. I know that there is a wide range of cases that go unpresented to the world. But I was blessed to be able to investigate his story and get it out publicly under the podcast of somebody, so that the world can hear his story and they can hear what happened to him. So, that's the gist of what happened to Courtney, Santita.
And it's something you live with every single day.
Yes. We just celebrated his 5th year anniversary. And I was telling myself, I was like, on March 4th, I was like, this is probably the hardest one. I don't know why I felt that way, but I felt that way. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to get into bed and I'm going to not move. But then Marnie had her appointment, so I had to get up and run your show. So I'm like, I said, you know what? God is telling me to keep moving, to keep busy. And so every day I wanted to all day I just wanted to stay in the bed and not move. But it was always things telling me to keep moving. So yes, I live with this pain every day. But God is always telling me move, trying to get me to do other things because I'm now trying my best to turn this pain into a purpose. Because I don't want his life to just be about his death, but about how he lived and how he cared for others. And so, we have a foundation now. We're trying to pass Courtney's Law. And Courtney's Law is something that we are pushing in the state legislature right now. And we're trying to get them to understand that, police have the responsibility to actually move quickly. And we're piloting it after a law that they have in Philadelphia called Scoop and Run. And basically in Philadelphia, if someone is critically injured, they actually throw them in the back of the police car and it's required that they take them to the nearest emergency trauma center immediately, not waiting on an ambulance. And it's been proven that 80% of gunshot victims who get this Scoop and Run treatment are actually surviving. That is amazing. Instead of waiting for ambulance. And we know that in certain parts of the city of Chicago, you can wait on the ambulance for 20, 30 minutes. They don't care.
What is the law now?
But the police.
What is the law now in Illinois? Are police required to do anything?
They're only required to call 911. They're not required to provide any life-saving techniques. They're not required to transport you, although they can. It is the discretion is up to the officer. So an officer could see someone critically injured and decide to put them in their car and take them and drive them if they feel like they want to do that. But that's my point, Santita. I want to remove that if out of their hands and make it they must. They must do these things. They must do these things. Because what we're seeing is that the racial component, which is never analyzed on how police react to Black and brown people. You've said it many times that, they don't believe that we're in as much pain as we are. Our conditions are severe. These are real things. So when my son was laying there begging for life, begging them to help him, and they did nothing, it's because they didn't believe that he was severely injured because he was talking and moving around.
Well, I think you have to make clear to the audience also that it took you a long time to get the video of the video of what was happening to your son, right?
Yes, it took over a year. It took over a year to get the video to see what happened, because it never settled with me that my son would just pull up, tell him that he's been shot, and collapse and not say a word. I always felt that that didn't happen. When I started to read the reports, it was saying that he was walking around, he was talking, he was communicating. And I'm sitting up here like, okay, I need to see this video because there is conflicting information about what is being said here. Because you told me the first thing that you said was that he passed out and never said another word. So I know my son, he would have given them who shot him, where he was shot, things of that nature if he was able to communicate. He was talking. He was talking into life till the blood filled up in his lungs. He couldn't speak no more. And this is what happened. And so that's why I'm saying, Santita, it's just that the lack of respect for Black lives when it comes to blue lives. Because we see the difference when Commander Bauer
was shot downtown, they didn't wait for the ambulance. They took that man directly to Northwestern, tried to save his life within 5 minutes. That sense of urgency that they have for a commander or the police officer, that's the same kind of urgency they should have for anybody, black, white, brown, yellow, whatever, anybody. They should have that same sense of urgency because somebody loves these people. Because it shouldn't matter whether you're a citizen or a cop. You shouldn't have preferential treatment because of your job description.
I have a couple of minutes before we go to break. What do you want people to know as we are looking at, as we're hearing about your case? That's why I don't like to have you relive it, because to fully disclose, you're you're a sister beloved of mine. And I've known about this case almost since the very beginning. But I think people need to know. So when they hear George Floyd's family crying out in anguish, someone everybody, Kenneth and D. Ray and Madeline and Tanya and Deborah and Nina and Bab, someone has experienced this. Because the police told us, they've given us a story. We don't know who shot him. We don't know if they pulled him over and he was shot by them. We don't know anything. Still, all these years later, the final minute belongs to you, Chaparral.
Thank you, Santita. I can say that this
1 minute
never goes away. I pray for the Floyd family, and I ask that everybody support them. What we can do is we can write, we can march, we can send monetary help to this family because they need it. They need it. They're in a big battle. To take down a police officer is going to cost millions of dollars. And the thing is that you never get the outside support because the blue wall is much bigger. So I always felt that I was fighting. It was like David and Goliath.
15.
I was climbing, trying to get the information, what happened to Courtney. I'm still doing that.
10.
Doing that. And I just think that, we just have to be supportive.
5.
Anyway, your voice matters.
Your voice
the way
matters.
that you can help people like us, get out here and vote. Get out here and protest. Write letters, emails. Tell your congressman, everybody in Illinois, tell them to support the Courtney Copeland law. Once we get it out here, this is what we need. Help us push what's right for America.
Okay.
Because it's going to make America better.
Oh, my goodness. Because one day it could be any of us, everybody. Back with Meghan Markle. I mean, what is it like for Black women in white spaces? Back in a minute. Chaparral, thank you so much. I know this was not easy. I know this was not easy, but everybody, Vicky is sending you prayers. Everybody's sending you love and prayers right now. And so I hope you feel those. I hope that you do.
I do. And that's what I was saying, God is amazing. And I was like, I don't know why God has chosen me for this journey, but it has a purpose. It has a purpose.
Absolutely. Well,
it has a purpose.
We've got attorney Hoffler on with us now. Hi, Attorney Hoffler. How you doing, CK?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing well. I'm moved. I'm saddened. I'm just, having, at the end of the day, we're all mothers, we're all sisters, we're all uncles, we're all aunts. And to every single death at the hands of the police or people doing something wrong affects all of us. Every single death. Every single child, every single adult, every George Floyd, every...
There are so many. That's what's so awful. Where's Attorney Hoffler? What happened?
She just dropped out.
Okay, well, just get her back, please. Okay. And Dr. Judice and everybody else. Chaparral, you going to stay with us?
Yes, I'll try to stay for a few minutes, Santita.
Okay.
But I have to get these twins together. But yes, and that's the hard part. It's so many. It's so many, and that's what's difficult to process. Because I often wake up and like look at the news or look at the scanner, and it's another one every day.
I do hope that you will go on this thread and see all of the love and prayers coming your way.
I will.
I hope.
That's what I said. That's why I keep on saying, Santita, God is, He knows what you need. He knows what you need.
And
yes,
God,
He does.
And He's an on-time
He knows
God.
what you need.
He's an on-time God.
Yes, He
Sometimes, you feel like you cannot get out of your bed in the morning. I mean, it's just because we all have these valley experiences, everybody. I mean, I have to tell you, I know when my brother was in difficulty, Congressman Jackson, it was a very, very painful and unsettling time for our family because we were so worried about him just every day, every day, every day. And I would walk through the airport because at that time I had to go to New York like every single week. And people would touch me. They would literally touch me on the shoulder, touch my arm. White, black, brown, yellow, red, we're praying for you. I cannot tell you what that meant in that moment. Just for someone to somebody prayed for me, had me on their mind, took the time and prayed for me. I'm so glad they prayed for me. Remember that song? It means so much. It means so much. It means so much. But that's why it's important for us to share our stories, so that we can help each other. Because we need to help each other. And you all, everybody, I forgot to mention Roger Mudd, the great Roger Mudd, who made his transition. Wow. We all grew up with Roger Mudd and Walter Cronkite back in the day when you actually had newsmen and newswomen. And he was 93, great CBS newsman, and he made his transition. May peace be upon him and his life. Dr. Cheryl Judice, how you doing?
Fine. How are you doing this morning?
Oh boy, we've had quite the heavy topic already. We've got our dear beloved Chaparral. We were talking about the George Floyd case, and
yes,
and Chaparral's son was murdered under circumstances that are still unclear. We do know that the police didn't save his life. They said that when they saw him, he'd already been shot, but they let him bleed out for 15 minutes before they took him to the hospital. Oh yeah, I mean it's just, oh my gosh. I mean,
it just goes on and on.
It just goes on and on and on. It just goes on. And that's, I mean, and it's that sigh that you have when you go,
yes,
here we go again. I mean,
again.
I mean, really? Just, and she has been fighting for the past 5 years to find out what happened to her baby. She couldn't get the video for a year. I mean, how do you all do this to people? I don't understand it. Okay, hey, CK, and I think we got Dr. Deborah Holden on with us. Do we have?
Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning,
Holden.
Deborah.
Good morning, ladies.
Okay, now we have got Dr. Cheryl Judice, and I think, oh my goodness, she's a sister beloved, and I cannot wait for you all to hear about her book, Interracial Marriages Between Black Women and White Men.
1 minute.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, and I have to say, a lot of, let's just say hypothetically, sometimes, as a Black mother of boys and, in our community, sometimes people feel some kind of way about interracial marriage with Black men and white women.
Yes.
But I will say that there is a different standard. I have to be the first to say this. When we look at black women with white men. I mean, there really just is a different standard. And I, you have to just speak truth to power. I'm guilty of this myself because I do believe that.
Hold that thought, because we will come on. No, I don't want you to spend your best stuff over here. Oh no.
Back in 15.
Say it to everybody. Oh yeah.
10.
Yes. Say it to everybody.
5.
I haven't read your book, but
That's okay.
I just feel like I've got to fess up on that one.
After this, you will.
Well, I'll tell you,
This is the
I have, but
Santita Jackson
the
Show.
Hey everybody, Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. This is the Santita Jackson Show, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station in AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Plan to have a tremendous conversation about Meghan Markle once again. I read a very interesting piece yesterday. Meghan reveals the perils of facing black women in white spaces. What do you think about that? Can't wait to get this conversation going with this tremendous panel and you. There's a seat at the table. The missing person is you. Call me, text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. And of course, GWC Injury Lawyers, because of their generosity, you can text at that number. But I need you to go over to the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. And everybody, please like and share. I don't care how many followers you have. It doesn't matter. Like and share. Let's get the word out. And I need you to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Yay, the Santita Jackson Show. Please get on over there. Even if you come right back, please come on over there and like and subscribe, And in the coming weeks, I will tell you why, because we want to go on and build up our numbers. But let us get to some headlines before we get to this hot topic today. Chicago, we're going to have a high of 65 degrees and cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 48 degrees and rain. The Dow closed up 30 points yesterday. The Nasdaq closed up 464 points, and the S&P 500 closed up 54 points. Wow. Jim Crow in a suit and tie. Georgia Senate approved a massive assault on voting rights, everybody. The Republican Party of Georgia advanced its sweeping assault on voting rights yesterday by pushing through the state Senate legislation that would roll back no excuse absentee voting and ramp up voter ID requirements. Indeed, President Jimmy Carter said that I am disheartened, saddened, and angry. We must not lose the progress we have made, he wrote. We must not promote confidence among one segment of the electorate by restricting the participation of others. Our goal always should be to increase, not decrease, voter participation, everybody. We're looking for a jury of Derek Chauvin's peers. That appears to be some of the holdup with the trial of George Floyd. Former police officer Derek Chauvin, who's on trial in the killing of George Floyd, is entitled to a jury of his peers, this Washington Post story goes, which makes one wonder precisely who those people might be. Wow. What do you think is going to happen, everybody? What do you think is going to happen? There are 3 jurors who have been selected. How will they get to the other 9, everybody? Well, it's a no-brainer, long overdue. There's a report from the Economic Policy Institute that finds that raising the minimum wage to $15 would boost the pay of 32 million Americans, everybody. That's fully 10%. 10% of Americans. And guess what's happening out in Nevada? The progressives have taken over the party. I mean, conservatives take over the party, the blue dog Democrats, that happens all the time. But guess what's happened? Since the progressives, the Bernie wing, if you will, have taken over the party, now there's a mass exodus of staff and consultants. They are leaving the party. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. Well, the royal family has responded to this incredible interview with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, and conducted by Oprah Winfrey. The Buckingham Palace issued a statement saying that these issues were concerning the whole family. They wrote, it's saddened to learn the full extent of how challenging the last 2 years have been for Harry and Meghan. While some recollections may vary, They are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. Harry, Meghan, and Archie will always be much loved family members. Those are some of the headlines. Well, everybody, let's get to it. This interview that we saw with Harry and Meghan, Prince Harry, um, and his wife, Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, everybody's talking about it. And it's brought up a lot of issues of race and class and on and on and on and on and on it goes. Um, and misogynoir, what is that? That's the hatred of, misogyny is the hatred of women. Misogynoir is the hatred of black women. So it was very interesting when I came across this piece that talked about, the headline is Meghan reveals the perils facing black women in white spaces. What is that like? What is that about? What is that about? As we're looking at the headlines, we saw Piers Morgan, one of her sharpest, fiercest critics, who was a friend at one time. He actually left a very lucrative post at Good Morning Britain because he's been very, very critical and he's been called to account on that. And you see, but the headlines on Meghan Markle have not been kind. I remember one of the early headlines from the Daily Mail: Meghan Markle's family went from cotton slaves to royalty. Well, I mean, that's true, but they meant it to be a slight. And on it went, and they have exploited the tensions in her own family. I mean, in fact, her father gave quite the stinging interview yesterday because they are still estranged. She said, "We all made mistakes. I never played naked pool or dressed like Hitler like Harry did. Ow, surely my daughter can forgive me." It just does not stop. So,
oh my goodness.
Well, yeah, well, these things, I wonder how they reconcile that. Dr. Judice, Dr. Cheryl Judice, Northwestern University, brilliant, brilliant author and professor. And she has a book that everyone needs to read: Interracial Relationships Between Black Women and White Men. We've got Dr. Deborah Verholden, who has returned to be with us here because she said, "I want in on this discussion. I want in." Of course, she's Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University, but she comes out of Johns Hopkins. She's had to function in these spaces. Attorney C.K. Hoffler went to boarding school in Europe, for heaven's sake, as a child. And so the president of the National Bar, we've had a lot of experiences. National Bar Association, chair of Rainbow Push. And Chaparral said she was going to stick around too because she wants to say something. So let me start with you, Dr. Cheryl Judice, PhD in sociology. Meghan reveals the perils facing Black women in white spaces. What do you make about that? What do you make of all of that?
Well, I make that it's nothing new. How long has that occurred? Particularly as women have risen up in the ranks, Black women, most likely they are going to be the only Black face in white public spaces. The other thing I was thinking about with reading this article, I went back a little in time and I think about what Venus and Serena Williams had to endure as they rose up through the ranks in the tennis world. And I remember how their father was interviewed and how he always went with them anytime they had to be in these tournaments because I think he called himself doing his best to shield them from some of the racism that he knew that they were going to receive at the hands of, largely white people that are interested in tennis and resent having Black people rise to the top in a quote-unquote their game. It's probably the same kind of thing for a male, Tiger Woods, when he was younger, rising through the ranks in the golf world. There are certain sports that people, believe that are sacrosanct, that belong just to white people. And, of course, when you have Black women rising in those areas, it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Like, okay, there's still nothing that's just as white as it once may have been.
Well, I mean, but is this really shocking? I came across yet another article.
No, that's what I said. It wasn't shocking. It was just the latest in a series. That was, in some ways, if Meghan didn't expect to have problems, that was a naivety that I can't even imagine that she would have had growing up as a biracial young woman.
Well, maybe not to stereotype, but in California, you have a different kind of space. It's more rainbow. there, right? They're really on the
Right.
cutting edge socially, because it doesn't seem that she's had. Um, um, it doesn't seem like she has been. I mean, she's very close to her mother for sure, but she doesn't seem
Right.
like she's someone who's really a product of the black culture, if you will. I mean, you have biracial kids who,
Right.
who really come through. You can see that with Kamala Harris, with Vice President Harris,
Right.
who
Mm-hmm.
who I think was more steeped in the black culture than Meghan Markle, right?
Yes. Yes.
Does that
No doubt about
does
that.
that
Of course,
strengthen you? Or?
Megan did go to North. No, I mean, again, Megan did attend Northwestern University here in Evanston, and from what I understand from people that would have been in school with her during the time period, they don't really know Megan that well. It wasn't as if she were invested in being a part of the black community at the university. So that would be my only way of addressing what it appears to be the truth about where she's most comfortable. But on the other hand, when she had her wedding, I think she went out of her way to acknowledge her black culture with just the number of people that she had in her wedding, performing her wedding, etc. So I don't think that she was without knowledge. I just don't think that she was as immersed as you may find some other children that are biracial.
Well, because it seemed the weddings like that they're always political statements, right? Because even in her veil, she had the flowers of all of the Commonwealth countries. I think it's like 53 of them. So I felt that she was because this was a wedding that was watched by like 2 billion people, like a third of the planet.
Sure.
That was she was speaking to the Commonwealth nations, India, Kenya, Nigeria. 94% of them are Indian and African. So, it's like she was talking to them, not to me in Chicago.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
So, no. But let me circle. I mean, but how do you view this interracial marriage between this black woman and this powerful white man and moving into this powerful white family?
Well, I don't think Megan thought it was going to be that big of a deal. After all, her father is white, and even though she's estranged from him now, she did recount an earlier very close relationship with him growing up. I think it again initially when it was announced, I think it got people to thinking, maybe things are turning around a little bit. Race is maybe not be as salient an issue as it seems to have been and it still is. But so again, I think there's a lot of hope surrounding that it'd be okay. I still think that Harry, his response, how I was watching his body language, I was watching what he had to say when he was in the interview with Oprah. I was thinking at the time that he was acting in a very typical way of most of the white husbands that I've interviewed for my 2 different books on the topic. Again, very protective of his wife. And at the same time, he admitted that he didn't understand what she had to go through until he, quote unquote, got a chance to walk in her shoes. So for Harry, that was an admission of not only just his white privilege, but his lack of understanding what goes on. And that, too, is typical in interracial relationships. I've had many black women say that they aren't interested in being in interracial relationships because they think the learning curve for the white men to understand what they go through is going to be a little too high, and they don't want to have to be experiencing this kind of thing on a daily basis. But then on the flip side, there are once these men are involved in these relationships, oftentimes their black wives and girlfriends get a little annoyed with them because they think that the men are overly sensitive to subtle or more overt acts of prejudice and racism, and they want them to get over it because the women who've grown up with this, in some ways, have become inured to it. And so when the men come along and they are, they want to address every little slight, oftentimes what happens is they'll say, we can't address everything that happens, or we'll never get beyond this, and we'll never get anything else done, and it's not going to change the way life is anyway. So Harry really reminded me in many ways of white men that are very, very sensitive and become highly alert to any acts of aggression against their wives.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, what say you?
Well, I believe that, having always been my entire childhood through college, one of very few black girls, black women being called a monkey when I was 6 in Europe, literally a monkey, where people, because remember in the 60s, in the 40s, Hitler actually forever, and during that period, during World War I, World War II, Hitler had people believing that black people had tails and that we were monkeys. So in 1968, when my sisters and I, and aunt and cousin descended upon Versoix, a little town outside of Geneva, Switzerland, a little child pointed to us, the 3 little girls, myself and my 2 older sisters, and said, "Look at the little monkeys." And she wasn't even joking. It wasn't even, look at the little monkeys, because to her, and of course she had to learn that from her family, we were little monkeys. So I all of that experience, and always ever being like one of 2, one of 5, one of 4, one of 3, one of 10, but not ever one of 20. You learn to deal with, address, and cope with these issues. And it's just a dose of reality that you get as a child, much like the dose of reality that some of our children get in this country. And I'm not biracial. It's just that was my dose of reality living in Europe as an African American in the late 60s, and living in Canada, going to school in Canada in the 70s, and then being at Smith College in the early 80s. That was just the reality. So Meghan Markle, her experiences are just really the experiences of black people. Any black person going to college, you can choose to socialize with black people or not socialize with black people. You can choose to identify one way or the other. Nobody consider her anything other than black. I mean, there's no confusion there. But her experiences, she gravitated toward people that she's comfortable with. That's what people do. That someone at some point started saying, "Wait a minute, hold up. Who do you think you are?" is what happens all the time. No surprise there. All that's happening to her, to me, there is not surprising. It was expected, but it's just sad. It's so sad. And it's sad because on some level, she probably was not prepared for it when it actually happened. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing. But nothing was this. I didn't find this to be surprising at all. It's just sad. It's just unfortunate. It's just another reminder of the racial dynamics and reality, not just in the United States, but in the world. And when you are in the United Kingdom that colonized more countries than any other country in the history of the universe, that's just, that's going to be the nature of the beast. So I feel that her narrative, when she's talking about this, I applaud her for sharing it. I applaud her for surviving, because she's really surviving. She was suicidal. When you believe, or when you say, "I didn't feel like living," you are. I'm not a doctor, not a clinician, but in my little way of looking at it as a lawyer, having handled some cases where psychological issues were at issue, she was suicidal. And hopefully she got help, and hopefully she's getting help. My concern, because Harry and Meghan are grown people. They're grown. They've made their decisions. My concern is really their children, the next generation of coping. How are they going to deal with this? And we just have to continue to help our children to deal with these issues. And so the narrative, I'm glad she's sharing her story. Black women, it's very interesting when we see interracial relationships. All communities have some kind of reaction. No community, and no one's monolithic, of course, but a lot of people have reactions. If you're a black mother, and you have sons, you may not be excited. You typically may not be excited about seeing your sons with white girlfriends or being married to white women. That's just a normal reaction. And for sure, if you are a white family, typically, a white father is not going to be elated and overjoyed with seeing his white daughter with a black man.
Well, hold on, because Cheryl, stay right there, CK Huffler, because you got 2 sons. Hold on, Dr. Judice, as you've been doing your research for this book, interracial marriages between black women and white men in particular. What are you hearing from CK Huffler?
Well, I'll tell you, it goes both ways. Number one, there are very few black men
that are excited about seeing their daughters with white men. So this is something that it goes both ways. And again, so I think that's important. But the other thing that I found interesting in my research is there was one case that really stood out about a black woman whose father became was such good friends with her father-in-law that when they ultimately wound up divorcing, and mind you, they'd been together 15 or more years, it was her father who took her divorce very hard because he wondered how it was going to impact his friendship with his daughter's father-in-law. So it just kind of that kind of always stands out to me that this was a case in one family, and certainly not indicative of all, where again the relationship between the parents was so close that they were all very saddened when the marriage ended.
I'm going to bring Dr. Deborah Holden on the other side, but I wanted you to finish your point, CK, because because of the research that Dr. Judice has done, and we're accustomed to black men, being with white women, but black women are less inclined.
That's true. But no, in my, and I'm not a clinician, haven't studied it. I don't think anyone's excited about interracial relationships between black and white. Black mothers aren't excited when their sons are with white women. White mothers aren't that excited when their daughters or sons are with black men or women. White fathers aren't excited, and no one's excited about this. People tolerate it, and some people say that they don't see color. I don't believe that. I mean, everybody sees color. It's just that some people just are able to live with it differently based on their experiences. But everyone sees it. All of these couples are going to be ostracized. There's not going to be a time
1 minute.
you can walk down the street and people are going to look at them one kind of way or the other. But there's not going to be a time that I walk down the street or I walk into a courtroom or I go and do what I do that people aren't going to look at me some kind of way. So, I mean, these are things.
When we get back, I want Dr. Deborah Holden to react to all of this. This is a whole lot, you guys. We've got a lot of callers, too. But you know what? Let's talk about this because, CK Hoffler, you're dropping a lot of nuggets.
30.
And they're golden.
Well,
Dr. Cheryl Judice, this book, Interracial Marriages, there are two books, everybody. Interracial relationships between black women and white men. You have got, one came out in 2008, the other came out in 2018. You've got to get the book. It's very readable.
10.
It's wonderful. And it takes you into the courtship process and the family building and all of that. Let's talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. Dr. Deb, I can't wait for you to respond on the other side. Don't spend all your best stuff over here, but you're free to talk because we're on Facebook Live with everybody. Hey, you guys. So, okay, Adrian Paul has said to you, CK, she said this. Okay.
No, I mean, and again, I might be a little blunt. And I am in all kind of circles all over the world, but I just call it how I see it. And when you're a mother, you just have to be honest with yourself. Now, a lot of people look at it differently. They think it's a great thing that people are mixing and all of that. And that may be, people feel that way, but I'm just saying, in general, nobody's embracing this. They're living with it. They're supporting their children. They're supporting their loved ones because on some level, you want love to conquer all. But love can conquer all. But the reality is that many people are going to hate. And when love is conquering, you have to factor that into it. It's a part of reality in life. I may not hate because I don't hate people. I'm not that way. But I'm not going to feel all kumbaya, warm and fuzzy. For my children, my sons can be shot and killed in a car if they are transporting their white girlfriend. They can be killed just based on that. So no, I am not warm and fuzzy.
Daphne,
I'm not feeling. Oh, let's just So,
Daphne,
may I just jump in here with one statement here, and that is that I want to bring up, and of course there may be not many people listening that are part of this faith, but there is actually a religion that puts forth
that we definitely want to have more interracial marriages. It's a part of their tenets because they believe that's the only road to world peace, and that's the Baha'i faith.
That's right.
So when we talk about how people are tolerating it and they're not actively supporting it, I just wanted to bring up that yes, there actually is this religious tradition that does support it, and I've had discussions. I've had discussions with people who believe that. I've had a lot of discussions with people who believe that. I've had a lot of discussions over the years with people who believe that, and I am not. I can only really speak based on personal experience, but a lot of people I've talked to over the years say they believe that's the only way to deal ultimately as humanity with all the hatred, because when your grandchildren, who you love because they're your grandchildren, are black, because that's what Archie is. Archie is black. I don't care what anyone says. Archie is black. And if they needed a reminder, they could just see all of the stuff that's being printed about in the press. He's black. When your grandchildren are black, you love your children and your grandchildren, and somehow that helps you to minimize
1 minute.
the racial dynamics. So I do know people believe that, but it's still but even with believing that, you're still recognizing that there's this uneasiness and difficulty, and people have a hard time accepting it.
But you know what?
And nobody really likes it,
Yeah, but I should tell you, my father told me, look, if you he told me to look for 3 things with a husband: drug-free, hardworking, and a capacity for loyalty. After that, I said, "Is that it?" He said, "Yeah. If you get those 3 things, you got a whole lot." Period.
Agreed.
Agreed. And because at some point, it's like, because we're all living in a lot of different spaces now.
Right.
And you're like, some people are not going to be excited, but if you talk to your parents long enough,
10.
you might find out your grandmama didn't like your daddy, or the mom, or
5.
something. People go
Absolutely.
on. No, hold on. We're about to come back up. Hold on, because I got to bring Dr. Deb in too.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, what a conversation. Everybody like and share. Daphne, I want you to call in, because your son is about to marry a white young lady, and we wish them all the love and all the strength that I think anyone would need in a marriage. So call us at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Keep trying, Daphne, until you get through, because we want to hear your story. And we've been talking with Dr. Cheryl Judice, PhD from Northwestern University. She has 2 books, and same premise, same title: Interracial Relationships Between Black Women and White Men. They're fantastic, really, because it really takes you in these relationships. And before we get to Dr. Deborah Verholden, as we've been talking with Attorney C.K. Hoffler, who's like in it, and everybody's in it. And I know Dr. Verholden has a lot to say, as does Chaparral, and people who've called in. Why did you write this book? I thought what you told me was really fascinating.
Why did I write it?
Yeah.
I wrote the book, Santita, because I was so tired of seeing so many young black women accomplished in every other area of their life, checked off every box, but when it came to dating, they never seemed to find someone that they wanted to be in a relationship with, or could find anyone. And it was, again, for most of these young women, I observed them on college campuses. And I thought, gosh, a big part of the college experience is your social life. And in that area, they weren't having a good time. And one of the main reasons is because they limited their search for love to black men. And on any college campus across the country, there are obviously more black women than black men. And of course, there are more white women than white men as well. But for blacks, it's more pronounced. And I was tired of seeing these young girls just limit their search for love to black men, because at the bottom line is that there simply are not enough black men. There's nothing wrong with black men. My work does not disparage them in any way. All I'm saying is that if you're a black female, we're the only group of women in the country that cannot take for granted that when it comes to love, that we are going to be able to find someone within our own race to date and marry. And by limiting yourself to trying to do that, you risk giving up the best childbearing years of your lives in search of something that may not exist for you. And if this is something you want, you're going to have to be intentional about broadening who makes an acceptable dating and marriage partner. So that was my whole premise, and that's where I am with it.
Because you saw girls going through their entire undergraduate careers at Northwestern
Yes.
without dates.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, in fact, exactly. If one moment in time sticks out with me, I was in a seminar with a group of other professionals, even counselors, and we were talking about relationships. And this hall was filled with probably 100, 150 black students at Northwestern. I just will say it as it is. And in the midst of everybody having a good time talking about relationships and who does this and who does that, a young black woman stood up. And she was almost in the middle of the room where she was seated. And she stood up and she started to cry. And she said, you know, I'm a junior here at Northwestern. And in the entire time I have been here, I have never been asked out on a date. And I'm not the only one in this situation. And she said, but I'm the only one, I guess, brave enough to stand up and tell you that when I came to college, I never thought that no one would want to date me and that I wouldn't, I wouldn't be able to go out or, do things that the other groups of women do. And I mean, when she started to talk and cry, that room that had been bursting with energy went dead silent for several seconds. And then all of a sudden, people said, well, have you tried this? Everybody's, people just so tuned into her pain. She had really struck a nerve. And again, I never got to ask her because there were so many people were excited about giving her advice and why don't you do this and yada, yada, such that the time ran out before I could ask her, who are you looking for? Just where have you limited your search and so on and so forth. But we didn't get there. But it just struck me how her experience was so similar to what I know of other girls on that campus. And it's part of my job when I was teaching. I have visited so many college campuses where this same situation is right there for black women to deal with. And yes, it has been around for a long time, but at the same time, in more recent years, it's gotten far more predominant. And, this is what I was hoping to address.
Well, that's a funny thing because Dr. Mary Frances Berry, who was the first black president of a predominantly white institution, she went on to head up the Civil Rights Commission. And when I was looking at college, she called my mother and said, I've heard Santita got into all these wonderful schools. Where is she going to go? Will it be Howard, Harvard, Yale, or Spelman? My mother said Howard. She got a full scholarship there. That is where she's going. And she said, thank goodness. There are this was back in 81. And she said, there are so many of these black girls, I'll never forget this, who can't get dates. She said, they're not getting dates. They don't have, she said, they don't have fleshed out social lives. She said, not to mention some of the other stuff that happens. But let me bring on Dr. Deborah Holden. I mean, because that's going back 40 years, everybody. And yes, I'm dating myself, and I'm glad, because I'm glad to be around. How about that? Deborah Holden.
There you go.
What do you make about all that you have heard? Ooh.
Well, it's a lot. And, I've really gotten this driven home for me during the COVID pandemic. I was surprised at how many of my white colleagues and friends and neighbors didn't realize how unfair and racist America is. Like, people literally were just like, I didn't know. And a part of me is like, well, we've been sharing. These things have been displayed on the media. But I even harken back to things like Rodney King. That was like the first time that I ever saw something that egregious on national TV. And I was just really shocked at how all of my peers were, well, what did he do? We didn't see the whole video. It was just like, I just thought it's so hard for some people to wrap their head around and to wrap their minds around this is how the world works for some. And so I think what we've gotten during this pandemic is people are more vulnerable.
Well, wait a
They've got
minute.
their guard down.
No,
They're consumed.
but this goes to the heart of this. How do you have those conversations in your professional situation that can become a personal situation, right? How do you? I mean, because if you get too honest, you could lose your job security, right? I mean, how do you have that conversation, Dr. Verholden?
Well, I always, again, harken back to what I said earlier. People have to first be well. I'm a big fan of in the moment activism, but not everybody isn't about that because for a lot of people, that's draining. I'm a very outspoken person. They have this trend on Black Twitter called Black in the Academy. And one of my white colleagues was trying to pop her chest out and say, look at me, look how much I know about Black culture. And chimed in on a conversation that she had no business chiming in on about the struggles we were facing at my institution. And she said, if y'all want to really understand, go and search Black in the Academy on Twitter. And I responded immediately, no, you don't need to go on Black Twitter. Because people like me, I put something up in that trend with that hashtag. And I had a different colleague who is Black say, girl, you want to be university president when they write, you better take that crap down. Like, it's real. It was funny. And boy, did it recreate a lot of us, but take it down. So I clapped back immediately and said, don't go on Black Twitter to understand the experience of Black academics. I asked the Black academics right here at this institution. This isn't for your entertainment. This is because y'all are in positions of power, authority, and privilege. So if you want to know what's happening, ask the people right at your own institution and then do something about it. You don't get to be entertained by Black Twitter. That's for Black people. It ain't even for y'all. And if you want to know, ask the people that are right here. So I practice in the moment activism, but I don't encourage that for everybody. Because if it's not who you are, if it's not your personality, or if it throws you over the edge. When I heard poor Megan say she thought about being, had the thoughts of not living because it became so, heavy for her, my heart goes out because I can understand what that is, but that's not how my machinery works. I'm not suicidal. I'm homicidal. I'm like, this is messed up. You should die.
Oh, my
Like,
word.
this is wrong. Y'all need to go. No, I'm being dead serious. But it's a lot of other people whose machinery works different. And don't get me wrong, being homicidal is probably just as bad as being suicidal. The point is, this stuff takes a toll on people. And so now my real question is, and Megan, sister girl Megan, it's like we always welcome our people back. If you've been living a life of privilege or a life where you weren't exposed or you weren't around, Black is Black. You always got to invite to the cookout. Megan needs to come on, go to the cookout, needs to now use her voice. 17 million people. I think they said that's more people than watch the Super Bowl. What wanted to hear her
Wait a
story?
minute, but
I'm
Deborah,
like, you got?
But use her voice to say what? She has not been in the community.
I know. We need to wrap our loving arms around Megan.
No. I'm wrapping my arms around her. But I'm saying, I don't know how you can speak for me because you've not had my experience. All your girls are white. All of them. I don't have
but
see the thing. And I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying her first husband was white. I don't have a problem with that. One of my brothers is married to a white lady. I love her to pieces. Love my nieces and nephews. I don't have a problem with interracial relationships. I've dated interracially. I ain't got no problem with it at all. I don't. But I'm saying when it comes to being someone who speaks for Black women, and I'm not pulling her out.
I'm not asking her to jump to the front of the line and necessarily take her back now. What I'm pointing to is the fact that she will have a voice and a listening that most of us will never garner.
Right.
But I'm saying, but I have to be clear on her messaging.
It is a question. Well, how does she use that voice?
Well, no,
I'm not saying right now we hoist the weight of that on her because she's not equipped to do it.
Yeah,
but that's the conversation.
Yeah, and that's why we're having
the conversation that we need to keep having.
That's why we're having the conversation today because I'm saying, wait, everybody can't speak for me. No, particularly some new era Vista. Okay, but I want to bring in some of the callers just very quickly, CK.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I want to.
This is such a hot issue.
Such a hot issue. It's okay. Let me bring in Chris from Wisconsin. Chris.
Absolutely.
And we're creating a safe space for you, Chris. We're going to step back. You can say what you want to say. Oh, Maria. Okay, Maria, what's on your mind, sweetie?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My
Hey,
goodness.
Maria.
Hi. First of all, I can't speak for the Black woman experience, but I've seen it, okay? But I can speak about my experience as a Latina, a Puerto Riqueña, living in Chicago, and I'm aging myself too, Santita. We're going back 40, 50 years. So here's the one thing I understand about Megan. When I was younger, I excelled in school. Okay, so I was always put in different classes where I was
Yeah.
the only Latina, the only person of color. So these were my colleagues. Okay, these were my fellow students, and it was hard for me to relate to them because we had different experiences. Everybody has different experience. So if they haven't experienced what it is to be a Black person living in the United States or a person of color or Latina, they're not going to relate. They're not going to understand. They're only going to base it on their own experiences. So for me, I had to look at who were kindred spirits despite the color of their skin. And I had many friends who were Greek, Italian, Polish, Haitian, Asian. I mean, I had very different friends. And I even found it difficult to relate to the Puerto Ricans in my community because our goals were very different. And again, remember, this is 40, 50 years ago. I didn't realize I was such a feminist back then. I didn't give it a name because I was such a quiet rebel. My mother always said, oh, you want to excel, you want to be a man. And I said, no, mommy, I am a woman. I'm smart. I don't know why I can't do just as well as any other person. So it was even a difficulty within my own family, knowing that I felt different. I felt so different because I had these aspirations. Education for me was my way out of a community where there was drugs and gangbanging and a lot of bad stuff that I just didn't want to live through that. I wanted to live a safer life. I wanted a world like I think of Star Trek. I love Star Trek because everybody, regardless of what they look like, are accepted, okay? They're only judged by whether or not they're a villain or a hero or a peacemaker or whatever. So this topic is so big and there's so many subtopics that spring off of it. But I can relate to my Black sisters. I can relate to my brown sisters that when you get to a certain level in life, you're going to end up in white spaces and you have to navigate. You need to learn. I had to learn how to do this. Even though I was questioned, I was asked, what are you? They could never figure out that I was Puerto Rican. So I was always a smart ass, excuse me. And I would say, I'm an American. I'm a United States citizen. No, you know what I mean. Says, oh, I don't know what you mean. I was being difficult. Well, I wanted them to say it. I wanted them to say, are you Latina? Are you this? But they never guessed what I was.
Well,
Probably because of the way.
Did you find that you had to work harder? Were there certain adjustments you needed to make, being the only or one of the few in your space?
Yes, I had to work double and above everybody else just to be on the same level. And I resented that so much because I had to work so much harder. And I represented the Puerto Ricanos, the Latinos, because we were stereotyped as gangbangers, people who had knives on us. I was asked that. You carry a knife? I'm like, are you kidding me? I was asked if I spoke English one time by a student in study hall. And I looked up at her. I said, God, I hope so. I'm in honors English. So I got all these crazy stuff, and it's not fun.
I got one better.
Well, before we go to Daphne, tell us.
Black people go swimming. Oh, when Black people go swimming, does their hair get wet?
Oh, yes. Yes, I've heard that one. All right. I don't believe these people can be on such a level that because of their own experiences, I don't know if it's fear or ignorance or what. I mean, please explore. Please find out what our struggles are. My best friend, are African or black. I like the term black. I'm sorry, people, if you want to hear African American, I'm so used to
It's fine.
okay.
It's okay.
Black, white, Asian. I mean, I have multicultural friends because we're all kindred spirits. So yeah, we may see color, but for me, I try to go beyond that. I really don't see the color. What I see is who you are inside. What's your
But
character?
you know what?
Who
But
are you?
hold on. Race is not the problem. Racism is the problem. I see color.
Yes.
Color gives you context. Color is great. The problem is not race.
Yes.
It's racism. That's the problem.
Yeah, right.
Let me bring on
I
Daphne
agree with you.
because I asked Daphne to call and those. Well, you all hold on because look, we'll have to have a part 2 of this. But let me bring Daphne on because she was making comments online, and I wanted Daphne to come on because this is something she's dealing with too. Wow. Okay, Daphne.
Absolutely. Thank you, Santita, for having me say my comment. I just wanted to say that my son is 37, and I am really excited for his union with his Caucasian fiance. They're going to get married in October. I'm excited. I'm not depressed, oppressed, afraid, or anything about that. And maybe I'm coming from a place as being 57 in August. I have never been married. And I do date within my own race, but I haven't, found any victory in it. So I agree with you. It's not about race. It's about racism. And I'm just excited.
But to be fair,
seem to be in love. And
I think that's important. Stay right there, Daphne. See, I think what Black women in particular and Black people react to is race hatred and self-loathing. And and Black women, your hair, you can't be light enough, your hair can't be straight enough, or at least it needs to be curly. Something, I mean, there's so much that's heaped. Come on now, I'm keeping it 100 with us. There is so much stuff that's heaped on Black women. That's so awful, and that's so oppressive. Yes, Cheryl.
Yes, very true.
Now, whoever was coming in, I don't know who was trying to say something.
That was CK. That was
CK, go on, CK. CK, whose hair cannot get wet.
My hair is when I go swimming. So I look at this on multiple levels. In terms of friends, many of us, if you've traveled the world and lived, but even if you haven't, you might have friends who are from every culture, every race, because you do find kindred spirits. You do. I'm often in a situation where I am the only Black person and on a trial team in a place, in a space, in a boardroom, in a non-for-profit, whatever. That's not really what I'm talking about. But when it comes to who you marry, who is your significant other if you don't get married, who you take home, I think that is different for me. Mm-hmm. That's different. Mm-hmm. And for my children. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. I am, and we must call it like we see it. I am completely hypocritical when it comes to Black women dating outside the race because of what the doctor said. There are so few options a lot of times in different spaces, and everybody wants to be loved. But what I say for my children, let me just personalize it. My children, there are these little Black girls, and it happens. I heard Dr. I'm sorry, I forgot the doctor's last name. I was just so moved by her comments. Judy's on Northwestern campus. Forgive me, Dr. Judy. I apologize. On Northwestern campus, but I'm here to say it starts on elementary and high school campuses. I have lived the experience where young Black girls at prep schools or predominantly white schools cannot get a single date to go to a prom, to go out on to the movies, to go to any social function. Not a single person. And I have had to speak to my children, because I'm African American, my children are African American, about if you all as Black boys don't treat Black girls with respect, who is going to? And what I mean by respect, when some of the young Black men or young Latino men or young Black and brown men take the position that they don't want to date Black and brown girls for whatever reason, and they prefer to be with other girls, and it's a slap in the face of these young girls who are, when you're a teenager, you're going through all the teenage things and trying to figure out your identity. It's such a slap in the face, and no one thinks about them. No one treats them well. No one considers them. No one asks them out. And what does that do for those young Black girls? It makes them feel like they are nothing. And that's the discussion that I want to have. That's why I say, for me, as a mother of two Black boys, I want to see a different narrative. You don't have to date every Black girl, but you got to treat her with respect. You look at that Black girl, you need to be looking at your mother. That's your mother. And that's, I think, it's okay. They're going to find love, and they're going to marry whoever they want to marry if they decide to marry. They're going to do that. But I think we as parents, at least me, I want them to learn to respect young Black and brown girls, because the pain that I see those girls going through, and the pain that whether it's on Northwestern campus, Smith College, or wherever we see, whether 40 years ago or today, is pain that you can cut with a knife. It's like putting it in someone's heart and turning it, because no one likes to be rejected. No one likes to feel like they're not something enough, can't get a date. So I think that's a discussion. It's not about race. It's about racism. It's about how we feel when we see that. That's painful for me to see.
Well, no, so hold on, everybody. We're going to stay on for about 10 minutes after the show on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Dr. Cheryl Giudice's books, Interracial Relationships Between Black Women and White Men. She's going to come back and talk about it. I'm already claiming that. But we gotta have this discussion. Because, no, stay right here, because we want to wrap this up on the other side of the break. Because this is something that clearly that makes everyone emotional. And the Meghan Markle, no, but it's because it digs into our history. Because the Meghan Markle interview brought up everything for us. It brought up interracial relationships. It brought up colorism. It brought up race. It brought up racism. I'm telling you, everybody, race is not the problem. Racism is the problem. Even being prejudiced, I would say, not as big a problem, because everyone has a bias. But it's what you do on the second impulse that's the problem, or the solution. And the third impulse. My brother Yusef gave me that. He said, no, look, everybody's got their biases. But what do you do with it? What do you do with that second thought, that third thought? If you start off thinking that someone might not have the ability to, do you stay there? Do you not give them a chance to? I mean, open up your mind, everybody. Race is not the problem. Racism is the problem. Women are not the problem. Misogyny is the problem. I ain't got the problem. You who sees me as less, you've got the problem. And we've got to deal with that. And we're not going to move forward
10,
and upward until we do. I'm Santita Jackson. Stay right here, Santita Jackson and Friends page, because you know what? We're having a hot conversation about these interracial relationships between Black women and white men by Dr. Cheryl Giudice and Meghan Markle in these white spaces. Is it hard for Black women? Yeah, it is. Stay right there. You all are too much. I mean, CK, look, everybody wanted inch girl. I can't even get to. I can't even get to anybody. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done?
I don't even know. I just can't express myself. Oh my goodness.
Daphne, are you still there?
I am. So
okay, stay right there.
I know I had some type of PTSD.
But the thing is, we want our children to be happy. I want my children to be happy, and whoever they choose, I'm going to be happy with. I don't. If it's a sister who is bad to my boys, I'm gonna have an issue. The same way as anyone from any other race. It's not. That's not about race. But I just say to my children, you want your children to love. You personalize it. Black women come in every shape, size, color, hair, all of that, and you just and I'm not. It's just something that I believe.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Is this not a conversation rooted in the rejection of Black women, just all around, right? I mean, if you look at these professional athletes, most of them are married to women who are lighter. I'm not against any of that. I'm just saying. I told you, I gave you all a little anecdote a few days ago about there was a friend of ours who was an ambassador at the UN, African ambassador. And he said, we were looking at the Bush, that's George H.W. Bush, that inauguration in '89. And we said, I wonder if Jesse's going to be there. These are some of CK's friends because she has done an extensive amount of work all around the world and in Africa in particular. And they said, you know how we'll find him? Ha 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 ha. He's the one with the black wife. Okay. I remember, no. I remember my mother came to my dormitory at Howard University. And it was just after 11. So it was when, I was a freshman. So you couldn't have company in your room past 11. And I came downstairs and my mother was furious. And when my mother has the furies, I'm like, okay, let me just try and calm this storm down.
Back up.
Yes, Lord. And she was dressed to the nines now, all that as she typically is. And my mother didn't carry ID. It's just all that. So she had to come over to my dormitory. So she was already furious. But the dorm mother, when she met my mother, she did not believe that she was my mother. And my mother went off. She said, it's because I'm not yellow. Is that it? I said, oh, Mom. Oh, we. She said, oh, no. She said, I know what this is. She said, because I had to stand here and convince this woman that I'm your mama.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, look, my mother, I look like my mom. Okay?
That's why we love Mrs. Jackson. That's why we love Mrs. Jackson.
Baby, she put it right. She put it right there.
Absolutely.
And the RAs who were standing there were like, now my mother brought me to school, but my mother was furious. And I saw that fury. I'd seen it before. I saw it when she would carry my sister, who's significantly lighter than I, and who's born with gray eyes. Okay, and people thought that my mother was a housekeeper. And I'm just telling you, or places where they didn't expect Reverend Jackson's wife to look like this. And I'm saying this conversation to me is going to that, because that's a very real part. And I love Mrs. Jackson too, Francis. I'm just telling you where we are. Becky, is this my Becky Piper from Pershing? I love you, sweetie. I mean, but it's all of that. It's Brian's sister, little sister. Is that you, Becky? I mean, it's all of that.
Yes, it is.
I'm wondering if this is, because I think we're bringing this to the conversation, and I don't have a problem with it, but I just want to know. And that's why I opened myself up to let you know, kind of, sort of. I love you, Becky. Wait a minute. I have to say hello to Becky Piper. We were at Pershing together 50 years ago. Well, your brother's my classmate, but Becky's behind me. She was with my brothers. I love you, Becky. Oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. Mwah. Okay. Becky, Bradley, and Brian, the 3 Bs. Okay, there we go. That's right. I had to go back. I mean, because it shocks me when I see people I've known 1,000 years pop up on my timeline. I love you. Give everybody my love, Becky, and stay in touch. So what do you think everybody jump in? Where do you think this is coming from? Because I feel like it's just like a mountain of rejection also that Black women experience in particular.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
CK, is that it?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think that is part of it. I think that's part of it. I think it's I think it has to do with Black girls too. I think it starts at an early age. It's not, especially now. It starts at an earlier age. You know, when I was in these environments, we did seek out the other Black boys. There was always 1 or 2 for our 1 or 2, and we would seek them out. And usually, they were the brothers of the people who were in school with us. So in Canada, it was our good friend, her 3 brothers were at the boys' school, and so I mean, we sought that out. And they were our dates. And then, there might have been other, sort of interracial. When I say interracial, we may have gone on dates with boys from different backgrounds and things like that. Because when you're in an international school, it's not really always about race. It's just about different people from different cultural backgrounds. But we always sought out people who we had more in common with. This is, remember, 60s, 70s, 80s, from a cultural and sometimes racial standpoint. But I think that the rejection does stem from a very young age when, sometimes our boys, and this could be the natural part of growing. Back then, for a lot of black men, white women were the forbidden fruit. So now, maybe they're not I don't know. Now they're not forbidden fruit, but now our kids, our little girls are growing up to expect that the young black boys will not be their dates, with a few exceptions. With a few exceptions. There's always an exception. So I think that we're living in different times, but I think the cruelty of it is what I object to. There was an incident at my kid's school where a group of black girls and boys were walking together, and one guy and one little boy, this was in, they were in 7th or 8th grade, middle school. A little black girl and a little black boy got into a little argument. And the little black boy said, "That's why we don't want to have to deal with you all, because y'all are just so opposite." And it became an issue on campus where we as black parents are like, what? Because that is the issue. These are children in middle school. What does a little black boy in middle school, what business does he have saying that to a black girl? And the humiliation that those girls felt, the embarrassment that the other boys felt, being there, but he went ahead and said it. He said what was happening and what maybe some felt. And that's where I'm coming from. I think that's tragic. That's there's so many layers of that. So that is what we're looking at. But when we talk about Meghan Markle, look, there are a lot of people that have had Meghan Markle-like experiences. That's not really so new. It's what do we do with those experiences? And all I was saying there is she should have expected that. And she, I thought, would have been more equipped to deal with that. But no matter what, at some point someone's going to call you the N-word, tell you too this, to that. It happened to my kids when they were 2. So maybe it happened to her when she was 37. But whenever it happens, it's going to happen. And that's when the reality sinks in of the racism, which is the pandemic. That's the pandemic that we need to fight, is racism. It's not racist. Everybody has some kind of mixture. If you're black in America, you certainly do. We know our history in slavery. So there's always some kind of mixture. That's not it. It's the racism that people who are in a position of power. When you're not in a position of power, you can't be really a racist in the sense of bringing about a change to the least of these because of being in a position of power based on race. You can have bias, you can have your views, but you can't, from a power standpoint, discriminate against other people if you're not in a position of power to do that, if you're going to do it based on race. But that doesn't mean that, all black people are good, all white people are bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying what I believe racism is as a pandemic. And but there's colorism too, and that's something that we have to continue to tackle in our community. When I was in college, it was the brown bag something or another.
Brown bag test.
Brown bag test.
Yeah. All that stuff is crazy. So
but wait a minute.
But we have all real. These issues to attack.
It's real,
right.
And it shapes our life options.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's not. It's unhealthy, no question about it. But today, I'm seeing young black girls who don't like their hair. Now,
don't like themselves.
They don't like their hair. Let's start there, because with us, it's a real thing. Hair is a thing for us. It's a thing.
Right. Absolutely.
It's a thing. And we're going to have to get over these things if we're going to be whole. And so when I'm that's why I was watching the Meghan Markle conversation, because I knew it would be something just in an ordinary time. I wouldn't have watched it because I wouldn't have been really interested in it, to be honest with you. Not that I don't wish them well, but it's like, okay, if you're going to walk into the power position,
been there, done that.
You've been there. Well, and let me tell you, Cheryl, If you are going to walk it, every first lady of every church I know catches it because she's in the power spot.
Right.
She's the first and last person that preacher speaks to. The
Right.
CEO, the
Right.
chairman's wife. Nobody's feeling her because you're the first and last person that the most powerful person in that setup speaks to, and you're the one who's the influencer. So people don't like you. Every first lady you know from the White House on over is catching hell. Absolutely. That's real talk. So I'm like, sweetie, you walked into this, you got the scion of the wealthiest family on earth. Of course you're going to take hits.
Right.
What bothered me
Right.
was that
Right.
because she was not raised with at least a black flank, she didn't have the cover. Because at least when you have your black girls, and as a black person, you need that. As a Latina, you cannot walk into a place and not have your culture with you. Because if your culture's not with you, you're ashamed of it. And that's a problem for you. Because these people are waiting for you with the blackamoor brooch, Princess Michael of Kent. And they're
right,
now if you feel good about yourself, you're like, sweetie, you can bring that brooch. Could I have it? Because I like to collect those things.
Right. Where'd you get that?
Where'd you get that?
Right, exactly.
Oh, yeah, those are the Queen's jewels too.
You're so
right.
You're
That's
so
right.
right about that. That's right.
That's right. The Queen's jewels that she stole from my continent. Because see, the reason you're sitting up here, sweetie, is because you're getting money from Africa. You're getting money from India. So all these folks for whom you have contempt make you rich. So be very clear. I'm not the debtor here. I'm the creditor. And I'm clear on that. But see, you have to be raised that way. And you got to have a whole...
Right.
Come on.
You really understand that.
Yeah.
Yes. Or if you're not raised that way, get it somewhere along the way.
You better get it.
So there's a big discussion now. There's a big discussion going on now about the value. Well, of course, it's in vogue now to be at HBCU for mainstream America because of Vice President Kamala Harris. But there's a discussion going around, and I've sat on panels about this, of because I'm president of the National Bar Association, why are black bars relevant? Why do we need... And my response is, we need them to breathe. If you are an African-American lawyer, you need these bar associations to breathe. Because when you have these experiences, when you're at the top of your profession, and always have been running circles since you were born around people, and you have the exact same experience like when you were 10 years old, 5 years, whatever, and you need to have a place that you can go to, that you can socialize that you can learn professionally, that you can grow, that you can vet, and people like you can say, been there, done that, this is how you address it. Try this. This is what you need that to breathe, to live. Just like George Floyd needed those, but he said, I can't breathe. We need those organizations to breathe, because just like Megan, it's gonna be a transformation. She's gonna have a transformation because she's going to need to breathe. And I applaud people. It doesn't matter when you come there, Tiger Woods and others. I applaud them for getting there at some point, because you're only a product of your experience.
Sure.
So if your experiences, as we've all said, don't teach you, and you haven't had that world, and then when it hits you like a ton of bricks, and then you can become suicidal, then you look to Lifeline. And these organizations, your girls, your ride or die, they help you to breathe, to live. Their lifelines. But when you don't grow up with them, you learn to get them along the way. Because at some point it's going to happen. I mean, we don't need to fool ourselves like it wasn't. It's going to happen. And so, and for me, I just think it's sad. It's tragic. My heart goes out to her. I hope she continues with the counseling. I think her world and the world that they are relying on, counting on, is changing dramatically, because she's finding solidarity and support in places that she probably didn't expect and she probably hadn't thought about.
See, wait a minute.
But she's now in that space.
I got to jump in here, because what concerns me is how that solidarity and our sympathies will be used politically. Because because see,
Always are.
yeah. Because people come late to the party, get to the front of the line. That's a problem for me.
Yes, yeah.
No. We
It's a problem.
push Fannie Lou Hamer and Harriet Tubman to the back. I'm just putting it out there, because we're living in a time where she's woke. But I mean, why don't you explain to me how you married a guy who wore a Nazi uniform to a party, and then you had another incident with one of his army buddies when he called him a pejorative. Nobody's talking about that. Oprah, you're the greatest interviewer on earth. You need to explain, since all this race stuff is coming up, how did you evolve? No, I mean,
so we could drop the mic on that one. That's exactly right.
I'm just saying. Look, I'm just saying our politics and our sympathies, because Black women made her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And I'm happy. Look, I want her to be well, but I'm saying to you, we made her relevant, and Black people make Black people always. I don't care how white you are. If you are irrelevant with Black people, white people have no need for you. They have no use for you, because they do not need their sand at their beach. They need mine. So I'm saying, okay, racism is a real factor for everybody.
Right.
Colorism is a real. You benefited from colorism, Megan, because you were racially indistinguishable. I ain't mad at you. I'm just sorry that you got gobsmacked with it, but okay. It happens.
Right.
So now what are we going to do with it? In this time when we can't get $15 an hour, when people need 24. Oh, yeah. Wait. When Black people have been so brainwashed, Black men will go to a white woman before he'll come to me. Or Latina. And I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just saying, we got a lot of stuff to unpack and unravel here. Because I'm tired of Black women being at the back of the line. I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of my Black American experience being at the back.
Well, Santita, I guess that's why you and I resonate, because I'm tired of it, particularly when I see how invidious it is for young girls when their self-esteem so much hinges on being viewed as desirable, and then to constantly be put in a situation where they are never chosen. It's just so heartbreaking. As I said, it's just very heartbreaking for me. And that's why I just want them to just recognize that this does not have to be the way it is, but you have to, again, you have to broaden your concept of who is going to love you. Because if you don't, you'll spend all your life. You'll spend all your life looking for something you don't have. And the thing that, but I want to tell you how it affects people. Let me tell you, when my book first came out, Santita, the first email I got was from a Black woman who lived out in California. And she said, her first thing was that she said in the email, "Why didn't you write this book 30 years ago?" She said, "If you had, maybe I would not still be single." Because I gave up my 20s, 30s, and 40s looking for my Black Prince Charming, and he never showed up. And she said, and I always wanted to have a family, and I know that's not going to happen for me now. And I wish that I had thought, of broadening who I thought, try to actively, broaden who I thought would be suitable to be my husband. Wow. And I mean, it's stories like that, that break your heart. Yeah. You just can't feel good unless you try and do something to say, come on, we are the only women in the country that can't take for granted that a Black man is going to be available when we want one and need one. And I just can't stress enough how my solution is not go find a white man. My solution is that because this is where we are in this time and space, you're going to have to decide to broaden who and be intentional about dating and looking for love in the best places. That's my whole mission, because there's a point at which this is just not right, and I'm just so tired of it being ignored. I've had black men say to me, well, do you think this issue is as important really when you think about all black men go through? I said, indeed I do. I said, I'm tired of black women their needs being at the back of the list, at the bottom of the list. No, yes, it is. And, maybe as we improve the lives of as we improve the lives of black women, we're going to be improving your lives too. So, that's, right. But yeah.
Because you shouldn't go through 3 years at Northwestern and not have a date. Because all the black
nowhere in
all
that
the
age
black
group,
football
whether in
players.
college or anywhere.
Oh, come on.
Yes.
Because they're all dating the white girls on the campus. Now, mind you, I don't have a problem with interracial dating, everybody. What I have a problem with is the rejection of black women. That's a problem for me.
Right. That's exactly right. Right. Right.
And it starts with the rejection of little girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
Little girls.
Right. And it starts so young.
That example up.
Yes.
Yep. Little girls. And then there was a young woman in one of my and that's why some organizations are very helpful with that. There was a young girl who's in my daughter who's in my Jack and Jill chapter, and she was 13, and she was tired of having all of her friends feel ugly. All the other black girls feeling ugly. They were all at predominantly white schools, feeling ugly, feeling less than, being treated like trash. This 13, and she started like a summit for young black girls, where she would expose them to black women who were successful and who they could emulate. And I had the privilege of being like on a panel. It was like a closed room. There were probably 20 little black girls that were in there. She'd assemble her, and get this, they arranged, she raised the money for a high tea at the Ritz-Carlton and a closed room. And there were like 5 of us panelists who were, had quote unquote had some success in our lives. And the young girls held up better than we were losing the idea was for us to be mentors and reach out to them and listen to their stories. When these young girls spoke of their pain, we were the panelists, we were toe up from the floor because it was so tragic.
Right.
It was tragic. It was tragic. And here we're supposed to be, giving them, we up there crying and everything. But it was so tragic because these girls literally stood up and said, I think that I'm ugly. I think I have no value. I think I have no worth. And these are the reasons why. This is what happened to me. This is what I go through every single day when I go to school. And that is something that, I remember my journey, but my journey was not like that. I had people pushing me. Right. And these girls have people pushing them, but this is how they're feeling in school. So when this happens to 13, they were 11, 12, and 13-year-olds, and then they go into high school, it's worse. And then they go to college, it's worse. Then they go to graduate school, it's worse. Then they go out to the workplace. But it starts when they're 10, 11. How do you tell a young child you're ugly? You look disgusting. You're gross. You're fat. You're disgusting. I don't want to be. But that's a level of cruelty. And we can't say that this is cruelty that one race is putting on us or the other. This is cruelty that's happening in schools against black girls. There aren't other groups that are being, maybe Latina girls as well, but not on the same level. But what I understand for these young kids. And so when I think about this problem, I think about maybe, looking at it from the early stages and how we can help those young black girls. I applauded this 13-year-old for putting this together every year. Every year.
Yes. Well, I think we need to start at preschool, whenever their first exposure comes outside of the home in a sustained way, that you are beautiful. And not in a little, what's the word, generic type way, but stress to them from a young age that you are important to me, you are loved, you have worth. And that message has to come out very early. I have a cousin in California, and she's fairly dark skinned. She was married to an African man by whom she had a daughter. And I used to get so tickled because, my cousin is quite, she's quite out there and doesn't care. But right from the very beginning, she had friends who would tell her, "Oh, you need Fatima. You got to do something to Fatima's hair." And she said, "No, I don't. This is who she is, and this is her hair, and it's fine." And I got so amused because when you see Fatima, Fatima is herself and is so happy. Her mother and father have reinforced her self-esteem. And she's a little young actress right now, and she's never changed. This is what is amazing. She's gone through college. She has friends all across the spectrum. My cousin just very much said, "Oh, Fatima, you just keep on going, girl." And Fatima does. But what I appreciate is how my cousin resisted all these urges from everyone else. Well, you got to do this. She got to get her hair straight. She's got to do. She said, "No, she doesn't." That's how. Her self-esteem is great.
But
It really is.
Remember what we did to that young black gymnast, Gabby?
Yes.
They said that her hair. This girl has just. She has just tumbled her way into history. Running up and down this mat, perfection. But black people jumped on her back because she didn't have that perm in. I said, "Really?"
Right. Right. I'm telling you. Yep. Yeah.
How about one of the most
traumatic slavery disorder?
One of the most powerful political figures? How about one of the most powerful political figures in Georgia, and I would say in this country, black women, Stacey Abrams. If you all could have, I had some knockdown, drag out, can't talk to you no more discussions with one of my former law partners, about her. And it went like this. I mean, if she wants to run, she needs to do something about her hair and get her stuff together because I said, stop. Stop. Wow. Just stop.
No.
I mean, when I tell you that was a subject.
Come on. That's our embrace of Kamala now. I mean, I'm not, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about our sickness. I mean, I am not talking down anybody. I remember my father stopping me in my tracks. There was someone who married a woman who looked white, and my mother that sent her into a little thing. And I was like, "Yeah, I think that's it." My father pulled me aside. He said, "Half of your family looks like that. Don't do that." He said, I understand. Because I was about 13 at the time. I'll never forget it. He said, "I understand where your mom is coming." My father never, ever talked down to me about my mother. He never, ever said anything negative, ever. He said, "Baby, don't do that now." And because he was very gently trying to lead me into the conversation on colorism. He said, "But don't do that, because then you're going to be rejecting half of your family." Your Aunt Linda, your Aunt Lydia, your grandmother, that's that whole group. Don't do that. But understand your mother's pain. Get that?
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a balancing act. But I think we got to, given the emotion that I'm hearing from this panel today, and as I look at the comments, and given, I think they're going. I think I saw in the comments that they're going to replay this interview. I think this week. Is it on Friday night? I think I want us to continue to have this conversation, and I want to bring some young people in.
Yeah. If you get some college students, young black women and black men, college students, that could talk about.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
We should. Dr. Daphne, you still there?
Absolutely.
So what do you think about that? I didn't realize you were still there. I'm so glad you are.
Oh no, I've lived everything that you all are talking about.
Well, then you make your comment, CK, because girl, I thank you, CK.
Right, I've got to. Well, first of all, Santita, thank you so much for this discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Right, it's just amazing. You always have enlightened discussion. What I love about your show, Santita, and what you do as a professional is that you always encourage people to express themselves. Of course, being respectful of each other
even if we have different views, and you touch on topics that are hot topics. That I call these courageous conversations. That's what I'm calling them these days, because not everybody feels comfortable talking about this. Certainly not on the air, maybe in family. And I love that, because this is how I believe we grow as people, as individuals, and as a community. And these are real issues that we're all confronting. So I thank you for allowing us to express ourselves. Today, you just hit on a topic that for me was so real on all these different levels. And I feel for Megan, of course.
Yeah.
But every day of our lives, as we move and groove in this professional world, having worked very, very hard to get there, we encounter these issues. But the difference is the preparedness, our lifelines.
Yeah.
And when I say lifelines, lifelines are people, lifelines are organizations, lifelines are perhaps even counseling, but lifelines that could help us. But we didn't just start getting the lifelines. We've developed these lifelines over time. One's mother, one's grandmother, people who are so important to you who could say, wait a minute now, you just get a little carried away here. Come right on back. The devil's come in, devil has come in, taking over. Hallelujah. You got to come back to Jesus. And people say that. I have people like that in my life all the time. Come, Jesus. Hallelujah. That's just right. But that's a lifeline, because they don't care about all that other. I have people like, that's really interesting, using big words and stuff. But you need to come home to Jesus. And if you don't have that type of lifeline in your life that can keep you grounded and help you through these issues, it does become difficult. And I'm not saying this only in the Black community, whatever her lifelines are. But evidently, the lifeline she had didn't help her prepare for this. And so she got to a very low point. Whenever someone is suicidal, that is just really tragic. Tragic.
But that's what got me, CK, because when you don't have, as a Black person in the world, you've got to have a Black baseline. And I say that when I look at my Jewish brothers and sisters, they keep that Jewish baseline strong, because they know they are coming into the buzzsaw of anti-Semitism. Every Jewish friend I have, to a person, they are strong on Hebrew school. They're strong on their culture, whether they are theists or atheists. That has nothing to do with protecting the culture, so that they can be protected, so that when they get out in this world and deal with hatred that's coming at them, they're ready for it. I'm not saying it's not heartbreaking. Oh, no, but they're ready for it. And when I saw her, I saw that she did not have that. And my heart broke for her, because I said, you got to have this, sis. Because if you don't have this, that's why you get in that palace, even though they won't let you make phone calls and all of that. Sometimes you got to go into that closet and steal away to Jesus. And you need that.
Yeah.
But if you don't get
what,
that,
Santita?
yes.
I'm going to tell you that what you're saying is exactly what my husband wanted to put into place. He felt that Black kids should learn Black history independent of the school systems, where you just get certain narratives and not the full story. And he said he looked at it just like what the Jews. He said their kids, they don't expect them to teach them Jewish history and what's important in the schools. They have Hebrew after school, and they go and they learn about their culture, and they learn about what matters in their faith.
Absolutely.
And again, that's what he felt was something that we needed as a people to emulate. Don't rely on the schools to teach our history, our narrative, and take them out of those spaces, put them in a place where, okay, this is what's really important. You need to know. Yes, it's fine, all the people that the schools cover, but that's not enough. And that's not enough to sustain you to understand who you are in the world. So.
And how can you ask someone who is oppressing you to teach you about yourself?
Right.
That is crazy.
Right. That's right.
You don't
That's
do that.
Exactly right.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
No. You don't do that.
Right.
That's killing your child.
That's right.
When my
there
mother and father sent my brothers to St. Albans, which is a very elite prep school, they were there every week at the football game. And my mother said, I chose this school because your father has an office in Washington. and we have an infrastructure. I'm not sending them to Choate. There's nothing wrong with Choate. Okay, I'm not sending them to Exeter. So, but I don't have access, and those are spaces that are just a little too white. At least as elite as the National Cathedral School for Boys, the Anglican Church. This is the Church of England School for Boys, because that's what St. Albans is. At least he will be in D.C. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, he's at Mount St. Alban, but he's in D.C. So he's gonna get some go-go.
Yeah. Right.
No, because he's going
So.
to need that.
Okay, I have to, Santita, I have to run. But did you say go-go?
Go-go.
You
Come
did
on.
say go-go.
Yes, I did. Come on, girl. You know Chuck Brown. You know EU. Get on out of here.
I do. Yeah.
Jesse introduced me to go-go. Girl, he brought those records back. Because he was, away in school before I got to college. We were like, what is it? And he put it on, because we had a stereo system that went through the whole house. And Jesse only kind of thinks about himself sometimes. And he would put it on, and he would turn it and blast it. Not in the stereo in the basement. No. He'd put it so it would pulsate throughout the house. We were like, what is this music that you are heavily percussive, African and African American? Oh, yes. Go-go. You remember go-go. You remember that girl from here in D.C.
Ladies, I'm going to say goodbye because I'm running late for my
Alrighty.
because this conversation, I can assure you, is much more interesting. Okay, well, have a great day, and thank you so much again, Santita. So great to see you.
Love you, girl.
All right.
Daphne,
love you too. Bye-bye.
Do you want to say anything before we go? Because we're all going to go. We've been here a long time.
We all.
Thank you for including me in the conversation of listening and everything. But I'm just checking myself to make sure I had put the lifeline out to my son in his selection. But it was not about me, actually, and I still stand by. I'm happy for him, and go there.
I told
blessed,
you,
married,
my
glad.
brother married a white lady. I mean, and you know what? They have 4 children, 5. And it's all good.
Wow.
No, look, I mean, one's on her way to college. I can't believe my niece is on her way to college, but that's a whole different thing. It's just taking me to faraway places. She's taller than I am now. I'm like, how did this happen? Yeah.
They grow so quick.
Yeah, but she grew so
he's about to
tall.
get married in October.
I said, when did this happen? But, I think what we're talking about, like I said, race is not the problem. It's the racism. Okay? Women are not the problem. It's misogyny. It's the sickness.
Right.
The sickness that we're
I'm
trying
a
to
product
address.
of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
I've
all
never
are.
been married, so I get it.
Well, no, but I think there are a lot of factors. That's something else that we can talk about too, because I haven't been married either. But a lot of Black women, and this is, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to drop this mic drop on this. Many of us are not prepared for marriage because many of us have not seen one.
Hello.
And
yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's a whole
I
different
know
thing.
I haven't. I can speak for myself. That's a whole other conversation.
But that's a conversation that we've got to have, because
Yeah.
many of us have heard horrible things about Black men because of the pain of our mothers' experiences. And even though sometimes our mothers weren't right either. I mean, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Everybody ain't well. So, I'm just saying to you,
or pick well for me, I could say.
Well, we know,
you don't pick well because you don't have the right glasses.
But that's okay. But that's
clearly.
That's why we have Dr. Judice here, because she saw something. No, you saw something on that campus, and you'd seen it before, and you said, "I've got to write about it," because when you write about it, you codify
We got to change it.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, you have to be able to talk about it and identify it before you can do anything about it.
That's right.
You can't identify it. You can't. What are you looking at? I wanted this based on just pure research experience on what people are going through. So yeah.
So
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, and you know what? And we're going to have you back because it's very clear.
Well, I'd love to come back.
Oh, I can't wait to have you. No, because in fact, I'm going to do something else.
I enjoy it.
So that we can. Oh, I'm so glad you did, because we enjoyed you, but I mean, and there are no buts. It's just because it's important. I think that's why, Meghan and Harry have been gifts, and nobody has to be perfect. Okay.
Right.
Because we're not. I know I am as far from perfect as I can be. But what is perfection is how God can use us in these moments to make us better, to make us well.
Right.
Because now we're having the conversation about colorism. Now we're trying to see, okay, the one drop rule, you can be biracial all day long. The one drop rule is it.
It's right. It's still right there.
It's just right here. And it's the one drop rule. And we have to be very particular because we have broadened the conversation out to talk about people of color. But let's be very clear. Black is the line.
Right.
Because black people are the only people who cannot marry or have children out of blackness. You can do that with every race but ours. Now, I know it sounds like I got on my red, black, and green dashiki, but I didn't set this up. I didn't create this system. But this is a system in which we find ourselves. You have white Hispanics, you have white everybody except white black people, unless it's a social thing, which means you're sick. So we got to have these discussions.
Well,
Dr. Judice?
Yes. All right. I'm all ready anytime. Again, that I think also we want to look at it from a broader spiritual base. Why are we in this situation? No, what is the role of the black person in the world? What are we supposed to bring? What are we? Those are what I look at. Nothing just happened.
Do you see what you just did? I just pulled up a story. Royals' comments raise race issue in the Commonwealth nations. See, because they needed her, and they still need her in the Commonwealth, because the Commonwealth is 94% Indian and African. It's 94%. So, I mean, this is where the Queen gets her money. So even all of this, this has made her a more sympathetic figure. And I think that's also part of a calculation. Because she's embraced by us in a way that she, quite frankly, was not before. But we're in a pandemic. There's so much that's going on. But that's why I'm saying I don't want this to get kicked to the front of the line. No, because we got some real issues. I got some girls who don't like themselves. And I don't think that you need to go into a castle in order to be special. I don't think you need to be light-skinned in order to be special. You are special because God made you. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. Right.
That's it.
Right.
Yes.
And so, Maria, you still there? You understand what I'm saying? She's one of my three amigas.
Yes.
My Latina sister.
I'm still here.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just listening to this.
But you know what? But I think that this is a conversation that we all need to have. And and fortunately for us, you know, as I'm looking at the chat line, we have people of every background on here listening. And I think that once as we continue to have these conversations, these tough conversations, we're going to get well, and we're going to get well together. But you know to paraphrase James Baldwin, nothing can be solved until it's faced.
That's right. That's right. I fully agree. Yes.
That's all.
So everyone get Dr. Judice's book, because I think it's a book that you need to read. Yes, interracial relationships between black women and white men. There's no equivocation on that. Interracial relationships between black women and white men. And she goes through how people got into these relationships. And you find overwhelmingly these black women, number one, they were chosen. Like the Bible tells you. You're not supposed to go looking for a wife. I mean, the man looks for a wife. You're not supposed to go looking for him. These women were chosen by some men who treat them well. And sometimes the marriages worked out, sometimes they didn't. But my mama told me.
Not a fairy tale.
That's not a fairy tale. I mean, hey, I know my father chose my mama, okay? He told her the day he met her that he was going to marry her. And he said I had to chase her for a year, but I got her.
Wow.
Because men are like that. Men shift into a whole different gear when they see that woman. It's an instinctual thing. They see someone and it's like, no, she does it for me. That's the way it works. And we need to help Dr. Judy's people with that. Understand that too.
Yes.
You can't chase him down, honey. It doesn't. No.
Well, no. Well, as I said, women just need to value themselves, and in the case of black women, because there are so many forces outside of us mitigating against this. We have to be very intentional.
Well,
And that's just what I'm trying to encourage these young women to be.
And we're going to do that because they got to take this studio because we have been running our mouths. But I love you all, and we're going to be back, and we're going to have another.
Thank you, Santita.
I love you, Maria.
Thanks for having me.
Daphne, Dr. Judice, everybody. I love you. Thank you, Paul. I just saw my text. I love you, everybody.
Okay,
all right.
bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Have a great one.
God bless you.
You all too.